Throughout my life, I've been subjected to countless hurtful words aimed directly at me. I've been called a scumbag for being single, among other things, but nothing compares to the insult my brother-in-law hurled at me recently. His slanderous remarks won't go unchallenged. My name is Amy Smith. I'm 38 years old, single, and working hard. You might wonder why I have a brother-in-law. If I'm not married yet, it's because I'm engaged. My fiancé, James, is 6 years younger than me. We met through a mutual friend and instantly connected. My work schedule is incredibly hectic, often requiring me to work on my days off. I met James during one of these busy periods, and when we're together, I can finally relax. James is a fantastic cook, skilled at sewing, and a diligent worker, qualities I admittedly lack. After we moved in together, he took care of the housework and even cleaned my suits, which has been a huge help. I always feel a bit guilty because I know how busy he is too. But I've reserved a table at a nice restaurant for my next day off, so we can finally enjoy a nice dinner together. It had become a regular habit for me to treat James to dinner as a way of showing appreciation for all his hard work, using the money I earned from my own efforts. I loved doing this for him. "Don't worry about it," he would say. "I can leave work on time, and I'm not nearly as busy as you. Besides, I do housework because I enjoy it." As we planned an upcoming family gathering, James often asked, "How are your family's plans for our meeting?" We had already met each other's parents shortly after our engagement, but we wanted to host a dinner party where both families could get to know each other better. James has one older brother, while I have two younger siblings. Instead of waiting until the wedding, both families agreed it would be nice to connect beforehand. So, we arranged a gathering that would include our parents and siblings. "I'm sorry, but my brother can't make it due to work," James explained apologetically. "I know you're also busy with work, so please accept his apologies." "Your brother is a very talented lawyer, isn't he?" I asked as James lowered his head slightly. "I wish I could have met him, but if he's busy, it's understandable. We can't always meet at a wedding." I wasn't too concerned, as I felt it was most important for the couple and their parents to come together, even if siblings couldn't make it. "Just so you know, my brother can be a bit distant with people," James added, looking tense. "Even if he did come, I worry he might be rude." As the day of the party arrived, it turned out that my brother-in-law was indeed absent. James seemed visibly relieved that his brother wasn't there. With my brother and sister in attendance, the party turned out to be a pleasant and enjoyable affair. My parents-in-law and I had a great time, and my siblings seemed to get along well with James, which was a huge relief for me. It was a fantastic opportunity for both families to bond, though I couldn't help but wish I had met my brother-in-law. As the day came to an end, I never imagined that when I eventually met my brother-in-law, I would find him to be such a rude person. In hindsight, it seemed like a blessing that he hadn't attended the dinner party. One day, my mother and I found ourselves at the university hospital. She hadn't been feeling well, and after visiting a local clinic near her home, she was referred to the hospital for a thorough examination. Although her symptoms were limited to palpitations and dizziness, I wanted to ensure her health was in check before the wedding. My mother, now in her mid-60s, still appeared youthful, but the thought of a potential serious illness worried me. She had already delayed marriage until her 40s, which had caused me some concern, and I felt a deep sense of gratitude for how well she had raised my siblings and me. "Ma'am, why don't I cover the cost for you to have a thorough checkup?" I suggested. I had never felt such a strong desire to help before, but this was precisely why I had worked so hard to be there for my family when it mattered most. Because the test couldn't be completed in a single day, we had to visit the hospital several times. The tragedy occurred during our second visit. The university hospital was exceptionally crowded that day, with long lines everywhere. My mother and I were waiting our turn, sipping hot tea in a quiet area away from the main waiting room, where we could relax and have something to drink.
My phone rang. It could be a work call. I handed my tea to my mother and stepped away to find a quieter spot where I could answer. It was indeed work-related, a call to confirm that I wouldn't be changing my surname when I joined the family register after marriage. As I returned to my mother, I heard someone yelling. My heart sank. What was happening? Was my mother okay? The shouting seemed to be directed at her, and I quickly rushed over. I saw my mother standing, repeatedly bowing in apology to a man dressed in a sharp, expensive-looking suit, with a luxurious watch and polished shoes. His slicked-back hair and haughty demeanor made him look like a debt collector. He definitely wasn't someone my mother knew, so I stepped in to find out what was going on. Excuse me, I said, trying to be polite. Did my mother do something to offend you? The man shifted his gaze to me, sizing me up from head to toe. She placed a cup of tea on the seat, and when I sat down, it spilled on my suit. What are you going to do about it? I have important business after this. I looked at his suit and saw that it was indeed a bit damp. I'm so sorry, I said sincerely. Let me cover the cost of the dry cleaning. But before I could finish, the man cut me off, his voice rising even louder. His shouting quickly drew the attention of everyone nearby, and soon, nurses and a small crowd had gathered around us. I'll let it go with just the cleaning fee, the man finally said, perhaps realizing the scene he was causing. Do you have any contact details? How can I reach you? I fumbled for a business card but realized I didn't have one with me. Just then, a security guard approached and asked, "Is everything all right here? Is there a problem?" The man clicked his tongue in irritation and threw his business card at my feet. Make sure you call me, he sneered. Don't think you can escape. I have connections at this hospital, they'll give me your information if you don't. I was stunned by his audacity and cruelty. As I bent down to pick up the card, he continued his tirade. You're single at your age? Women have an expiration date, and you're not just expired, you're unsold industrial waste, like raw garbage. A single woman, pathetic. Before I could respond to the vile insult directed at both me and my mother, the man turned on his heel and hurried off, clearly trying to avoid the security guard. I was left standing there, furious and disappointed in myself for not being able to protect my mother from this man's rudeness. My stomach churned with anger and frustration. I quickly offered a light bow to the onlookers and the concerned security guards, then picked up the business card from the floor. As I read the name and title, I was stunned. Who was this jerk? I couldn't believe the person behind those words was someone with such a title. So that's what all this was about. I cancelled my mother's checkup and took her home, prioritizing her mental well-being over anything else. But I knew I would never forget that man. I was determined to make him regret every word he spewed at us. About a week later, I found myself at the courthouse. It wasn't like the dramatic court battles you see in America, where a stain on a suit leads to a lawsuit, but I had my reasons for being there. As I walked through the familiar halls, the sound of my heels echoing off the walls, I spotted a man I recognized approaching from the far end of the corridor. I knew it was him.
As I considered what to say, he looked up, recognition flickering in his eyes. You're that trashy single woman from the other day, aren't you? He sneered. You've got to be kidding me. What are you doing here? This isn't a place for someone like you. It was the same man who had insulted my mother and me at the hospital. I wanted to unleash a barrage of harsh words, but something held me back. I have a darker side, a part of me that wants to see justice served with a touch of vengeance. Instead, I smiled coolly and said, "Oh, I'm very sorry about the other day. You must be Tom Dixon from Honeywell Law, correct?" I brushed off his outburst, recalling the business card he had thrown at me. Dixon's expression twisted with annoyance as he launched into a tirade about the suit incident, his mouth curling into a nasty grin. I had a client meeting at the hospital after that. He snapped, "You embarrass me. How does a trashy woman like you stain someone's suit and then not even have the decency to call me back?" As he ranted, I realized Dixon was indeed a lawyer, and our encounter today was purely by chance. His loud voice was attracting attention from others in the hallway, and I could feel the eyes of passers-by. Dixon seemed to revel in the spectacle, taunting me even louder as if he wanted to show off. I shook my head, which only irritated him further, but before he could continue, a voice from behind me cut through the tension. "Mr. Dixon, what's the matter?" someone asked, stepping up to address him directly. When Dixon saw the man behind the voice, his demeanor instantly shifted. He mumbled, "Oh no, this woman," as he fumbled to pull a business card from his case. The man who had just spoken looked at me, and his eyes widened in surprise. I glanced at the card Dixon had just handed over. It read, "Attorney Hannibal, partner at Honeywell Law Office." This man wasn't just Dixon's boss, was the CEO of the entire firm. As soon as Hannibal realized who I was, he began to tremble. He quickly bowed at a 90-degree angle, his tone suddenly respectful. "My goodness, it's been a while," he exclaimed. "Dixon, my subordinate, has been extremely rude to you. Please accept my sincerest apologies." Dixon, still clueless, looked at Hannibal in confusion. "Mr. Honeywell, what's going on? Do you know this woman? This is the same lady who ruined my suit the other day and tried to overcharge me for dry cleaning." But Hannibal, now pale, grabbed Dixon by the scruff of his neck and forced him to bow. "Ouch, what are you doing?" Dixon protested, still not understanding. Hannibal leaned in and spoke quietly but sternly. "How dare you, Dixon? This woman is a prosecutor, and not just any prosecutor. She is my former boss, Smith, who has never lost a case." Dixon's face twisted in disbelief as he tried to process what he'd just heard. That single woman he had insulted so viciously was a prosecutor. "Yes, I am a lawyer. Since childhood, I've been unable to overlook injustice. I once debated whether to become a police officer or a lawyer, but ultimately chose the latter. My goal has always been to bring criminals to justice, even if I couldn't catch them myself. Now, as a prosecutor, I work tirelessly to see that justice is served. As for Mr. Hannibal, he fears me because I mentored him when he was just starting out. He knows exactly what I'm capable of, and now, so does Dixon. He's a serious man, but he's in trouble now because the bond between a mentor and a rookie never fades." Attorney Dixon, who was visibly shaken, seemed ready to say something, but I didn't give him the chance. "You've grown into a fine man, Mr. Hannibal," I said calmly. Then, turning to Dixon, I added, "Mr. Dixon, I'll pay for your dry cleaning immediately. I apologize for the delay of being swamped with work. Is that acceptable, brother-in-law?" "Brother-in-law," Dixon repeated, his mouth dropping open in shock. "No way, James's fiancé." He frowned, his eyes wide with disbelief. The man who had been so rude to my mother and me was indeed my brother-in-law, the one who had missed our wedding dinner due to work. As I watched, his face turned pale. "As a lawyer, you should know that comments like 'a single woman is garbage' are not just insulting, they're legally actionable," I said, my voice steady. "I was ready to cover the cost of your dry cleaning, but your response was appalling. You could be sentenced to up to 1 year in prison, fine up to $3,000, or both. Which do you prefer?" As I said this, I couldn't help but smile. Attorney Dixon finally fell to his knees, bowing deeply as he realized his position was in jeopardy. "Please forgive me," he pleaded, "if the press finds out." It seemed that even assertive lawyers are keenly aware of the media's potential impact. Sometime later, I had a successful wedding, and am now thoroughly enjoying my newlywed life. James has embraced his role as a full-time house husband, allowing me to dedicate myself even more to my work and family. My brother-in-law apologized repeatedly to both my mother and me and even offered to settle the matter. However, I decided to let him off the hook for the dry cleaning bill. I could cover that myself. Although my brother-in-law didn't attend the ceremony likely due to feeling awkward, as business had taken a significant hit due to his behavior toward us and complaints from other clients, it seemed that bad deeds eventually catch up with people. I promised myself that I would cherish and protect the life I've built, ensuring that my family and I continue to support each other through everything.
I gave your dead ex-husband's life insurance money to my eldest son's wife for her housewarming. What's yours is mine, so you shouldn't have any complaints. Divorce? Understood. I guess he thought I would cry and refuse the divorce, because my husband seemed a bit surprised. Don't think everything will go your way. Just you watch. My name is Jennifer. I am actually remarried to my current husband, David. I was widowed from my previous husband, William, due to illness. William had a disease since his youth, which worsened and led to his death. Concerned about me being left alone, William left me a substantial amount of life insurance. I had no children with William. I met David through a relative's introduction. When I tried to refuse him, saying I wasn't a first-time bride. "Don't worry about that," he said. I felt happy, as it seemed he accepted not just me but also William. Since remarrying David, due to my frail health and David's high income, I've been a housewife. I gave birth to our daughter Susan and our son Anthony, and I've tried my best with housework and child-rearing. David sometimes brought home stress from work, behaving selfishly and yelling suddenly, but I managed to get by. When David was in a bad mood, moocher, nuisance, he would call me things like that. But I am grateful to David for providing a financially comfortable life. David treated our son Anthony specially as the heir to the house. For Susan and Anthony's birthday and Christmas gifts, school entrance gifts, and other occasions, he clearly favored one over the other. During long vacations in summer, he would take Anthony to his parents' house and not return him for days. At David's parents' house, Anthony could eat sweets and play games all he wanted, messing up his daily rhythm and study habits. When he returned, he would rebel and look down on me, making it very difficult to return to our normal life. I appealed many times to stop this, as it wasn't good for Anthony, but I took in a woman with a marriage history. A wife shouldn't talk back, he said, and never accepted it. Susan disliked David and his family's home and left the house early. Susan got married about 5 years ago. She has children and is struggling with childcare. Anthony got married about 2 years ago. His wife was young and beautiful. I often had trouble with Anthony's wife, Nancy's attitude, but we didn't meet often, and I thought maybe that's just how young people are these days, so I didn't interfere much. Now, this happened about 2 years ago. When Anthony and Nancy had dinner at our house to celebrate their marriage, Nancy said as soon as she arrived, "Wow, what a lovely house. Anthony grew up here? I'm so jealous. David, you're so successful, how impressive." "Well, you know, my wife is useless and can't work, so I had to work hard alone. But I guess this house is getting a bit old, just like my wife. How unpleasant, houses and women shouldn't be old. Women should be young and cute like you, Nancy. Nancy, you work, right? That's commendable. In this day and age, capable women need to work and live in society. Unlike my useless wife." David was smitten with the attractive Nancy and insulted me unnecessarily. This house is old, but I keep it well organized and clean. Perhaps because of David's groundless accusations, Nancy seems to think it's okay to look down on me just because I'm older. She even directed her condescending gaze at my eldest daughter, Susan. "Susan is just like Jennifer, huh? I think you should take care of your nails and wear some accessories. Have you given up just because you have kids? I won't become like Susan after marriage, Anthony, don't worry." Of course, you're different from Mom and Susan. They're so different, it's like they're not even the same species. Nancy acts superior and out of line towards Susan, who is struggling with childcare every day, but neither David nor Anthony seem to notice how ridiculous it is. After the dinner, when Anthony and Nancy left, Susan said in a dismayed voice, "Her attitude is questionable, isn't it? Honestly, I don't want to be involved." Regarding this, David said, "Susan, are you angry because she hit the nail on the head? Ah, women's jealousy is ugly," he said dismissively. Susan, looking truly disgusted, said, "Dad, you need to look at things more calmly or you might lose your way. A woman shouldn't speak so arrogantly. You always say such presumptuous things, Susan. Just go home." David, upset, locked himself in his room. "Mom, if you have any troubles or concerns, please consult me right away. I'm kinda worried about you," Susan left after saying that. One day, Susan invited me to a cafe in the neighborhood. Ever since that incident, Susan has been inviting me out more often, maybe to check if I'm alright. Mom, now that you're free from child-rearing, why don't you find a hobby or something enjoyable? Remember how you used to love gardening? Do you still do that? I still do a bit of gardening at home. Maybe I should take this time to relearn about different types of flowers and their planting methods. These days, many people post their gardening pictures on social media, which is fun to look at and can be inspiring. Let me see your phone, I'll install the app for you. After saying that, she installed a social media app on my phone. Indeed, there were many beautiful gardening images, and I found them educational. I was impressed that young people nowadays use such convenient and enjoyable things. From that day, I started browsing various posts whenever I had time. Not just gardening, but I also began searching for information on local botanical gardens and nice cafes. One day, I came across a post that caught my eye. It was about a new Italian restaurant in our neighborhood, which I had wanted to visit. But David had said, "Don't waste my hard-earned money on frivolous things." So, I wasn't allowed to go out to eat. The post showed a man and a woman dining together, perhaps on a date. They weren't showing their faces, just their hands, a high-end brand purse, and the keys of a luxury car. However, the purse and the style of the nails on the woman's hand seemed similar to Nancy's. And the man's hand didn't seem like Anthony's. It bothered me a little, but it was just a post on social media with no solid proof, so I was confused and didn't know what to do. When I consulted Susan about this, "Got it, I'll look into it a bit," she said. Recently, Anthony and his wife announced they were building a new house. It seems to be a stylish house, heavily influenced by Nancy's preferences. Nancy keeps adding options, and the initial estimate is now a joke. She insists on a top-tier housemaker. But I can't say no when Nancy asks. Anthony was in a good mood. "Well, I wanted our house to be nicer than this one." That's okay, right? Anthony has no choice but to listen when a cute wife like Nancy asks for something. I wish Nancy would ask me for something. Oh, really? I wonder what I should ask for. My presence being ignored, the three of them were excitedly having fun together. Thinking that a loan beyond one's means would only lead to future hardships, I considered sending some cash as a housewarming gift from us, and looked at the drawer with my debit card inside. To my surprise, the debit card containing the $300,000 insurance money left to me by my late husband William was missing. I immediately confronted David about it. "The debit card with the $300,000 insurance money from my late husband William is missing. What did you do with it? Where did you put it?" Then David said, That money is for Nancy's housewarming. Since it's thanks to me that you have been able to live up till now, that money is mine, right? If you have a problem with that, we can just get a divorce, okay?" Saying this, David flaunted the divorce papers in front of me. That money was precious, left to me by William. Of course, I never intended to use it alone. It was meant to eventually rebuild this old house into a small single-story home where I could spend my twilight years with David. Anthony and Nancy looked at me with malicious grins. "That's right, Jennifer. Wait, you remarried? Then you should be more grateful to David. Did William die of an illness? How sad. But money is useless to someone who's dead. We'll make sure to use it properly in his place. I took you in, Jennifer, even when you had a marriage history. I would appreciate a bit of gratitude. Besides, William died a long time ago. He's none of our concern. Wouldn't William be happier if lovely Nancy used the money more effectively than you, Jennifer?" Facing David's nasty grin, I felt my affection for him cooling. Even though David was arrogant and looked down on me, I endured it because I thought he had accepted me and my late husband William, since it wasn't my first marriage. "David, didn't you tell me not to worry about not being in my first marriage when we got married? Were those words a lie?" "Huh? That was just because I thought someone who felt inferior would be easier to manipulate. And it turned out to be true. Mom seemed to be tough on you because of that, but I couldn't care less. I was foolish. I had completely misunderstood. As a last hope, I turned to Anthony. Anthony, I raised you with love in my own way. Do you understand my sadness? What do you think, Anthony? I don't understand your feelings. As long as I have Nancy and money, that's all I need. So, you're giving me the money, right? As a parent, you should do anything for my happiness, right? Fulfill your responsibility. This was truly a shock. Regarding Anthony, I realized it was my responsibility for raising him this way. A feeling of guilt overwhelmed me. However, now that things have come to this, I resolved to focus on protecting myself. Understood. Then, let's get a divorce. Thank you for everything. I said emotionlessly, with a voice surprisingly low, even to myself. David, expecting me to cry and cling to him, looked a bit surprised at first. But then his expression changed to one of pity as he said, "You sure about this? Think hard, okay?" He said, and tossed the divorce papers at me. Anthony and Nancy were distorting their mouths in laughter. They all seemed like aliens to me. How much do they need to belittle others to be satisfied? As I quickly packed my things, I contemplated the future. Once I left the house, I immediately submitted the completed divorce papers to the courthouse. Now we would soon be officially divorced. I rented an apartment a little away from Susan's family's house and started living alone. I didn't persistently pursue David because I had a plan. One day, Anthony called, informing me that David had been arrested for theft. It was natural for suspicion to arise when someone, now a stranger, tried to withdraw $300,000 from a bank account under my name. At the police station, David claimed, "I supported Jennifer for years, so her things are mine. What's wrong with me withdrawing this money?" But such a claim wouldn't hold up. Despite his personality, I thought he was a calm and capable person, but his way of thinking had become so twisted. I felt embarrassed to have spent all these years married to such a man. Anthony seemed to think that if I spoke well of David to the police, his punishment could be lessened. Why would he think I would help lessen David's sentence? "I'm divorced now, it's none of my concern. Don't contact me." I hung up the phone. Later investigations revealed that David had been embezzling company funds, leading to his dismissal. This was surprising. Was there a reason he needed money so desperately to commit such a crime? It felt like there were still facts I didn't know. Around the same time as David's arrest, Susan contacted me. She had been investigating the social media account I was curious about. The posts I had previously seen were carefully made without showing faces, but some revealed reflections in mirrors or easily identifiable locations. It was indeed Nancy. Selling personal information for likes, I was appalled by her lack of crisis management skills. Her need for validation was indeed ingrained. Among the posts were some that slandered or defamed others. There were also posts suggesting personal relationships with several people, hinting at infidelity. Susan presented this evidence to Anthony. Anthony, furious, confronted Nancy, but she brazenly responded, "If you have a problem, we can just get divorced, okay?" Showing defiance. Perhaps due to his infatuation, Anthony couldn't bring himself to divorce her. However, it was problematic since some of the men involved had families or held significant positions at work. Moreover, Nancy received a stern warning from her workplace regarding her defamatory posts on social media, making it difficult for her to stay at the company, leading to her resignation. Such actions were typical of Nancy, known for her excessive pride. Well, all of this no longer concerns me. Several months later, I received a call from David. I didn't want to answer, but after several calls, I decided to pick up. "How many times do you think I've called you?" "Well, never mind. The house is filthy now. No one does any housework. It's like a garbage dump. Jennifer, come and clean it up." "Huh? Who are you? What? It's you, David. Your voice has become so old I couldn't recognize you. Now, what were you saying? I said come and clean the house. Can't you understand? Why should I, now a stranger, clean your house? What's with that arrogant tone? You and I were married, so you're also responsible for the house I'm living in. I have no responsibility. How about doing it yourself? Housework is a simple task, isn't it? I blurted it out, recalling something I had been told in the past. A man doing housework? I've told you so many times that housework is a woman's job. You're so stupid. Then how about asking your beloved Nancy? Isn't she currently unemployed, a moocher and a nuisance as you once said? I found myself repeating things I had been told in the past. I can't possibly ask Nancy to do such things. I knew that Nancy wasn't capable of housework, but it seemed David was also afraid of being disliked by Nancy, so he couldn't bring himself to ask her for help. Look, David. You and I are divorced, so we're no longer husband and wife. I have no obligation or responsibility to clean your house. Understand? If you contact me again, I'll consult a lawyer. After hearing this, David hastily hung up the phone. Several days later, I received another call from David. Hey, I'm sorry. Please come back. I'm in trouble because I have no money. Wait, that's it? I'll remarry you. That should work, right? If we remarry, you'll have the responsibility to take care of me, right? This will settle everything. Now, hurry up and do the housework and cook for me. Ugh. Why do you think I would be happy to get back together with you and take care of you? I refuse. Absolutely not. If you keep bothering me like this, I will call the police. I really hope this is the last time he contacts me. It turns out David had been trying to please Nancy by showering her with gifts. Purses, earrings and other accessories, and even the down payment for a luxury car. That's why he embezzled money from his company. Nancy was aware of David's ulterior motives and exploited them fully. Despite everything being exposed, I still can't understand why David and Anthony can't detach themselves from Nancy. One day, Susan said, "Maybe Nancy is what they call a community crusher?" After some research, I found out that this refers to someone who destroys interpersonal relationships within communities like company organizations, university clubs, mom-friend groups, or neighborhood associations. Characteristics include a distorted need for approval, being aggressive and critical towards others. While I'm not sure if Nancy fits the description perfectly, there seem to be many similarities. But as for me, all I can do now is to live my life without any involvement with Nancy and her ilk. Now, they're known in the neighborhood as a problematic family living in a famous garbage house, constantly arguing with each other. Given Nancy's extravagant tastes, the monthly mortgage on the garbage house is apparently quite high. It's said they're falling behind on the payments and will likely lose their home to foreclosure soon. As for me, I'm living alone peacefully in an apartment near Susan's house. I've improved a lot at gardening on my balcony, thanks to learning from social media. I sometimes do part-time jobs in gardening at local parks or botanical gardens, and also participate in volunteering. One of my joys is occasionally babysitting my grandchild and having meals with Susan's family. Susan's husband is a gentle person and is kind to me. I'm very grateful. Looking back, perhaps my late husband William helped expose the true nature of David and Nancy. This experience made me reflect on how I always felt inferior and never took action before. As a result, I've been hurt, and more importantly, I made Susan suffer for a long time. If I'm this hurt, Susan, who was just a child then, must have suffered even more. I also feel sorry for Anthony. From now on, I plan to think for myself and associate with people who value me and whom I value. It's never too late to start. My life is surely just beginning. Got into an accident? I can't go. I'm on a business trip now. A half-laughing voice of my husband is heard over the phone. And mixed with that, the sweet, ingratiating voice of a woman. Wonder what kind of business trip he's really on. Unforgivable. I'll definitely get him back double. My name is Jennifer. I'm 61 after retiring from a company that I worked for many years and trying to enjoy my second life by joining a book reading circle. I was in drama club during my school days, so I think it's time to show off my skills, despite the long break. Well, because of COVID, I haven't had many opportunities such as visiting schools. Now I can read smoothly picture books, but when I was a bit younger than now, I struggled to read something. Specifically, my husband's mind. That must have been around 17 or 18 years ago. I lived happily with my husband Ronald, who is 2 years older than me, and our daughter Amber, who was in 11th grade. Well, I thought we were living happily. Around that time, I often felt Ronald was being cold to me. It wasn't like he was ignoring me, but conversations didn't expand, and he quickly went back to his room after meals. It seemed like he was avoiding interactions with me and our daughter. Jokingly, "Don't you be cold to me?" I asked. "Just tired." But was that really true? Then he would reply. The unease didn't go away easily. However, "Hey, you've been cold to me lately. I'm lonely, be kinder." I wasn't at an age to say such young girls' whims like that. Pretending to be an understanding wife, and I chose to leave Ronald as I thought he must have his reasons. Looking back now, I think the outcome would be the same whether I had pressed him or not. Meanwhile, Ronald's return time from work started to get later and later. He worked for a white company, where he used to come home on time almost every day. Even though he was a manager now, but he had been coming home later than when he was a general employee. Could this really be happening? It seemed Ronald was dining out, as the meals I prepared were always left on the table, wrapped up until next morning. Busy enough to work until past midnight, yet he found time to eat out. I started to sense contradictions in Ronald's behavior. Then, one day, when I was seeing Ronald off at the entrance, "Will you go home late again today?" "Maybe?" His indifferent response frustrated me, even with my usual patience. In fact, Ronald's nonchalant replies had become common. Lately, he hardly answered my questions, and I was holding back my dissatisfaction and enduring it. I feared that if we fought, he might never return home one day. If it happened, our daughter would surely be upset. I wanted to avoid the worst-case scenario, but... "Hey, haven't you been treating me rough lately?" Finally, I blurted out. I don't quite remember, but I think I glared at him without realizing it. Ronald's face was strained. "If there's something wrong with me, I'll fix it. Let's talk. Your recent attitude, it doesn't just look like you're tired." Would he get angry? Or just ignore me? My lips quivered as I imagined the worst. But then, "All right. Let's talk tonight. It's time to leave now. I have to go." "Okay, take care." I didn't feel any warmth in Ronald's words, but I was relieved to know he was willing to talk. "It'll be okay, we can still make things right," I thought, but that night, Ronald never came home. He didn't respond to my calls. It seemed like he was running away from our conversation. What a terrible man. Late at night, I finally received a single email. "Going on a business trip, back on Tuesday." What is this? It's not a telegram from the old days. The next day, perhaps sensing my irritation, Amber, who was on winter break, asked me, "Mom, do you remember our promise to go out together?" She said. "A promise?" "Yeah, the one about going out for a drive to practice my driving." "You seem to be stressed out, Mom. How about we go to somewhere for a change of pace today?" "Oh, right, we had made that promise." Amber had just gotten her driver's license this summer, but we only had one car. Ronald often used it for work, and with Amber usually at school, she had no chance to practice driving. So, I had promised to accompany her for that practice during the winter break. Despite the break, I had been preoccupied with Ronald, so I completely forgot about it. Even she pitied for my accumulated stress. How pathetic. I felt apologetic and quickly agreed to go out with Amber. Oh no! It's my first time driving since driving school. I'm nervous. Stay calm and take it easy. Take a deep breath and try to do some stretches. Who does that in this situation? Really? Mom, you're so old-fashioned. Huh? As Amber opened the driver's side door, she suddenly made a puzzled face, crouched down, and picked up something. Hey Mom, this is... What she showed me was a long, glittering fake nail. Both of us were speechless. Neither of us wears fake nails, so whose could it be? The last person to use this car was... Dad, right? Yes. We got into the car, and although Amber started driving, we couldn't hide our disturbance. A fake nail found in the car last used by Ronald. The only thing that made sense was Ronald's infidelity. Since when? With whom? What kind of person? I didn't want to know the details of Ronald's affair, although I couldn't help but be curious about who it was. Amber was probably thinking the same thing, as both of us fell completely silent. And that's why our reaction was delayed. Amber! Watch out! I shouted, but it was too late. The car, misjudging a left turn, was crashed head-on into the wall beyond the guardrail. Mom! Mom, wake up! I'm sorry! Mom! Amber, are you okay? It seemed I had briefly lost consciousness from the shock. When I opened my eyes, I saw Amber's tear-streaked face. I'm okay! Mom! I'm so sorry! Call the police and... Dad. Okay, I got it. In a panic, Amber pulled out her phone. But she was confused by the first accident. She called Ronald before the police. Dad? Mom's been in an accident. Huh? An accident? You know, I'm on a business trip, can't do anything. Handle it there, will you? Hey, you're on the phone with me now. Your wife. Come on, just drop it. Ronald's unusually cheerful voice leaked from the phone, and I understood what he was saying. The ingratiating voice of a woman could also be heard. After being cut off. How could he? I saw Amber, she hung her head down. I'm okay. All I could say to reassure her. After that, I don't remember anything. It seems I lost consciousness again, and when I woke up, I was in the hospital. Then came Tuesday, the day Ronald said he'd be back from his business trip. The intercom rang incessantly. Opening the door, I found an unsettled Ronald. Welcome back. Ronald, greeted at the entrance, looked surprised. You said you had an accident. What the heck, you look fine. Don't lie. Furious at being deceived, Ronald spat out those words and tried to enter the house. Amber passed away. Ronald, who had been storming towards me, stopped in his tracks and turned around. What? Come with me to this room. I led a bewildered Ronald by the hand to the room. Wait, explain. Weren't you got into the accident? I just lost consciousness. It was a mere concussion. But Amber... She was fine after the examination, but last night she suddenly started feeling unwell, and by the time I woke up this morning, she was already... You're lying, right? I was waiting for you to come back, to see her one last time. As soon as Ronald entered the room and froze when he saw pale-faced our daughter lying down on the bed. Amber? It can't be true! Amber! As Ronald tried to cling to our daughter, I stopped him. Wait! I understand how you feel, but since she passed away at home, the police need to perform an autopsy. Don't touch Amber until the police arrive. I don't care about that. Stop it! Let me go! Please, calm down. It's for Amber's sake. Ronald, overwhelmed by shock, slumped to the floor powerlessly. Why Amber? Ronald began to cry bitterly. Tell me, would you have cried like this if I had met the same fate? What kind of question is that? Of course, I would. Then why didn't you rush to us when Amber called you about our accident? I was on a business trip. I heard a woman's voice on the phone. It was quite sweet. That was a client. Hey, you usually do desk work and have no sales or entertainment duties. What kind of business trip were you on with a client? What kind of work? It's enough. Stop nagging. We should be focusing on Amber now. Is this the client in this photo? I showed a photo on my phone, and Ronald was at a loss for words. On the screen, there was a beautiful young woman with striking features and suited black hair. When did you find? That reaction tells me I'm right. No. I don't know any woman like that. Then what about this? I showed Ronald the fake nail I found in the car, catching him off guard. At that moment, Ronald lost words. This belongs to her, right? You can't say you don't know her now, can you? Where did you find that? In the car. Amber found it. Both of us were so shocked we got distracted, and then the accident happened, all because of you. That's your fault for not paying attention. Don't act all high and mighty. The moment Ronald retorted. No woman could stay calm after discovering her husband's affair. Don't be so shameless, old man. What? Surprised by the voice of his daughter, who was supposed to be eternally asleep, Ronald turned around in shock. But there she was, lying down motionless just as before. What was that just now? Ronald's face turned pale at this bizarre situation. With a father's misdeeds so grievous, maybe she can't ascend to heaven. A ghost? No, a zombie! No matter the form, she's still our daughter. Wait. This is different. What if she's come back to life? Aren't you happy? That's impossible. It's scary. What if something that isn't Amber has come into this house? Ronald, genuinely terrified, clung to me. He always was bad with horror. Then, our daughter slowly sat up and hugged Ronald from behind. Dad. She said with a smile, hugging him. Ronald, reacting to his daughter's mischief. Eek! Let out a high-pitched and fled to a corner of the room. Ha. You totally fell for it. Got scared for real. I've been alive the whole time. Ronald looked at us in astonishment during Amber had burst out laughing. What do you mean? This is what you get for cheating, old man. We set up this whole act. Normally, I would scold Amber for her words, but she probably doesn't even want to call him dad anymore. This time, I thought. Oh, and she calls Ronald as an old man, so I just forgive this time. Well, she said including man, so it's okay. I decided to let it go. I would like to call him something much worse. Amber thoroughly explained to the utterly bewildered Ronald the entire sequence of events. So, both Mom and I just got examined and we're fine. Alive really well. I looked up people associated with your company on social media, old man, and found someone with the same fake nails. I thought, maybe she was, and when I checked her posts, there was a photo with a man resembling you. Plus, on the same day you didn't come home, she blatantly posted about a date with her boyfriend. And on the day of the accident, she wrote about being on a trip with her boyfriend. It's no coincidence. So, Mom suggested me pretend to be dead to scare you, thinking you'd slip up under pressure. Scared you, didn't we? About me and Amber's sly smile, Ronald. I was really worried. You two are the worst. Agitated, exclaimed. Well, maybe going as far as doing death makeup to look pale and lying down about an autopsy was a bit much, but I don't want to hear it from someone who cheated. Amber nodded vigorously at my words. If you were really concerned, you would have rushed over the moment we called. Your sudden act of a worried father doesn't resonate at all. You must have enjoyed your affair trip, right? Didn't want to leave the young woman? A man who prioritizes his desires over his family, a rotten to the core guy. I don't care about you anymore. Ronald was frozen by our daughter's strong logic and biting sarcasm. I admit it, I did wrong by cheating, but being blamed by Amber is tough. She's my only daughter. What? So you want us to forgive you, Dad? Yes. How pathetic he is. What do you think, Mom? Amber looked at me intently. Well, first, I want to know how you met this woman and hear all the details. Hey! Mom wants to know, so spill it immediately, old man. Fueled by anger, Amber, now more of a bandit than a high school girl, grabbed Ronald by the collar, making him tremble. Additionally, Amber reacted by saying, I accidentally touched him. She rejected the hand that had touched Ronald as if it was contaminated. Needless to say, Ronald was so shocked that he teared up. Deciding to come clean, Ronald began to recount how he met this woman. Their meeting was at a company event. The younger woman admired Ronald's work and approached him proactively. She claimed to want only to talk about work as a junior colleague. But Ronald, flattered, decided to pursue her. The woman, charmed by the attention from someone she admired, accepted Ronald's advances, but she was single. Moreover, she was hoping to marry Ronald, leading to recent tensions since Ronald hadn't intended to destroy his family for a fling. He explained that not speaking to me was due to his anxiety about their relationship being discovered, fearing that I might notice his irritability. The trip, which I thought was for an affair, was actually to appease her mood, as he candidly admitted. As for the fake nail, it was likely deliberately left by the woman, who was growing impatient for marriage, hoping that its discovery would lead to our divorce. If you choose me and over her, I might consider not divorcing you. Of course. With Amber here. I choose you, no question. Then call her here right now. I need to hear her say it's over, face to face, to believe you. I understood. 2 hours later, Ronald's mistress, Sarah, arrived at our house in response to his call. I said, "You must be Sarah, right?" Then Sarah, openly hostile, declared, "Whatever you do, I won't break up with him." Sarah responded with open hostility. "No. I want to break up. I want to start again with my family." At Ronald's words, Sarah's face turned pale. "You're kidding, right?" She repeatedly asked Ronald in disbelief. "Sorry. I like you, Sarah, but not enough to pay alimony to my wife and live with you." Wait, did he say outrageous statements? It's not about me or Amber, but just about not wanting to pay alimony? Both Amber and I were appalled. That's terrible. I was serious about you. Sarah was pounding on Ronald's chest. Indeed, Ronald had been terrible, and her feelings were understandable. Hit him harder, enough to affect his ribs. I found myself secretly cheering for her at that moment. Ronald, looking troubled, simply let it happen without resistance. That's how it is, Sarah. Ronald won't be yours, and he will pay alimony. Also, write a pledge saying you won't be with Ronald anymore. Don't be ridiculous. I absolutely refuse. Please, Sarah. Initially resistant to my demand, Sarah seemed to understand the futility after Ronald's plea. Fine. She weakly responded and began writing the pledge as I had instructed. Then, right after making Ronald write a pledge with the same contents. Ah, good. So we do not get divorced, right? Ronald, still trembling, quickly finished writing his pledge next to Sarah, who was still writing hers, and then blurted out a tactless remark. Even the usually composed Sarah's face turned pale. "You're despicable," and muttered that. It must have been a moment of realization for Sarah, where 100 years of love could fade in an instant. A good riddance, indeed. No divorce is a no-go. What do you mean? I mean, no divorce is not happening. We're getting divorced. What? You said you'd consider not divorcing. Yes, I considered it, and I decided we should divorce. What? That's not fair. After making me write this pledge. Well, I never really considered not divorcing him, but that's a secret. Don't worry, once we're divorced, that pledge becomes meaningless. So, what will you do? Restart with Sarah? Why would I do that? Wait, should I? Sarah, should we try again? Ronald gazed at Sarah with an unmistakable ulterior motive in his eyes. However, the look that Sarah returned was incredibly cold and detached, a stark contrast to Ronald's intentions. Are you joking? You easily agreed to write that pledge to break up, showing how little you cared. And now you want to turn things around because you don't want to be alone? Too late. No, that's not what I meant. Watching their exchange, Amber and I couldn't help but smirk. Honestly, I'd be upset if Ronald just quickly moved on with his affair partner after our divorce. Amber felt the same. I wanted Ronald to experience the same despair of being abandoned that my daughter and I felt when he betrayed us. That's why my daughter and I came up with this covenant strategy. Ronald is a man of high pride. And it was easy for my daughter and me to foresee that he would refuse a divorce. So, we decided to use the threat of divorce as leverage, gaining control over the situation and guiding Ronald's actions to our advantage. Sarah's feelings for Ronald would surely plummet after seeing him agree so easily to part ways. I never expected Ronald to reveal such despicable traits, but well done, Ronald. Perfectly played the fool. Ugh. Thanks for nothing. I'll pay whatever it takes to get rid of you. I was foolish to fall for a man like you. Wait, Sarah! I was wrong, let's start over. But Sarah pushed away the desperate Ronald clinging to her. Oh, so I'm no longer of interest to you? No, that's not what I meant. You won't reconsider the divorce? No. You only cared about avoiding alimony, right? I thought your pride wouldn't allow you to be dumped, but I guess money comes first. That's a miscalculation on my part. I do love you. So what am I to you, really? Sarah glared sharply at Ronald. Oh, that's scary. Finally, Ronald was left speechless. Ha ha ha. It's pathetic, old man. Rejected by both women in the end. Well, who would want such a man? Amber burst into laughter. Give me a break. Leaving Ronald to hold his head in his hands, saying, Sorry, but even if Mom decided to get back with you, I wouldn't allow it. I don't want to acknowledge you as a father. It's creepy. Perhaps shocked most by his daughter's words, Ronald broke down. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. And then, he burst into heavy tears. Seeing a grown man cry over his own mistakes was, to say the least, off-putting for Sarah, Amber, and myself. There was no way we could ever have feelings for such a big baby. Afterward, as declared, we demanded alimony from both Sarah and Ronald and proceeded with a thorough division of property in the divorce. From Sarah. Thanks to you, I've been able to get out of a bad relationship. I'm sorry for the trouble, and thank you. Later came to me with a box of sweets in hand and said, It was a surprising turn of events to be thanked by the mistress, but in a way, it was a relief that the divorce didn't leave a completely bitter taste. As for Ronald, let me see Amber. He contacted me several times, asking to see our daughter, but ugh, so annoying. Just block him. So, following Amber's wishes, I blocked him and continued to ignore him. Now, Amber is married and, incredibly, the mother of triplets. I can't handle 3 kids on my first try. Although she was initially overwhelmed, she had become a splendid, resilient mother. Her husband is a genuinely good man, helping with childcare and household chores. I doubt he would ever cheat like Ronald did. As for me, although I joined a book reading circle, COVID limited my opportunities to showcase my readings. However, I found joy in reading to my grandchildren. At first, my 3 grandchildren showed no interest in picture books, making me lose confidence. But now, just by me picking up a picture book. What story are you reading today? Now, they gather around excitedly whenever. I hope they grow up to be kind and fond of reading. After experiencing the biggest turmoil of my life, I'm now thoroughly enjoying a peaceful and fulfilling second chapter. I'll never forget the shock of running into my husband Kent at our best friend Sarah's baby shower. It seemed Sarah didn't know that Kent and I were married. Anyway, the idea the two of them had a child together. That was beyond belief. You two look so happy together, I'm almost jealous. Oh dear, to be the odd one out in our trio of friends. Sarah, Kent, I hope you guys find happiness, no matter what. Sarah nodded with a full-faced smile, while Kent did awkwardly in return. I knew the truth. I knew Kent was the kind of man who'd say, "Pregnancy is not an illness, so don't be lazy." He wouldn't lift a finger to help a pregnant woman. To think he'd cheat on his wife, with our close friend no less, was beyond comprehension. Asking for forgiveness? That was out of the question. I decided it was time for him to lose everything. My name is Lucy. I'm a hairdresser in a small town. This is where I was born and raised. It's not as flashy as the city, but it's a comfortable place to live. The sense of community here is just right, making it a great place to call home. Kent and I were high school classmates. Back then, our friend Sarah and us were known as the inseparable trio, always together. Especially Kent and I were the class's official couple. Whenever someone asked, "Where's Kent right now?" I could answer precisely, often teased, "You're going to make a great wife someday." The third member of our trio, Sarah, was always plugged into her earphones, listening to British music or the radio, dreaming of England. She was one of the top students in our class. Sarah achieved her dream, attending university in England, and after graduating, we only exchanged messages a few times a year. After graduation, I went to vocational school and became a hairdresser. Since my family owned a beauty salon, I started working there. As for Kent, he joined his family's business after attending a local university. That company sold beauty products like shampoo. Interestingly, the company was a business partner of my family's salon. The connection was another reason our relationship was often the subject of playful comments. Kent was reserved, not much of a talker, the opposite of talkative me. Yet strangely, we got along well, and our relationship from high school led to a marriage without a formal proposal. We bought a house in the city, started a new life in a spacious home. Sometime after our marriage, I became pregnant. Overjoyed to be carrying Kent's child, I happily shared the news that night. "Kent, guess what? I'm pregnant." I was eagerly waiting for his joyous reaction, but what I got was anything but enthusiastic. "Oh, is that so? Aren't you happy?" Silently, he started fiddling with his mobile phone, searching for due dates and birth stories. "The baby will be here next year. Make sure you wrap up your work by then." Is that all you have to say? What else is there to say? I guess nothing. I was honestly disappointed with his attitude, but soon, I found myself in a situation that left no room for such concerns. My first pregnancy was tougher than I had imagined. I used to work full-time, but sudden bouts of illness and doctor's appointments often made it difficult. Reluctantly, I decided to take maternity leave earlier than usual and focus on my health. However, Kent was unsympathetic to my condition. He searched the standard duration of maternity leave on his mobile phone and confronted me with it. "Aren't you taking off too early? Our income will soon decrease." My job is physically demanding, and everyone's health conditions are different. Besides, my mom said she'd handle the salon while I'm away. Pregnancy isn't an illness, so don't be coddled. If you're like this, our child won't amount to much. He would even say such things, even though it's his child too. If it's my child, it has to be excellent. You need to make an effort too. If you become a lazy housewife, I'll divorce you right away. You've been slacking off with the housework, haven't you? The meals are sloppy, and the house is a mess. I just can't manage it all right now. I have a limited diet. Can't you at least prepare your own meals? In fact, he was completely reliant on me for household chores. Growing up in a family business, I was accustomed to housework from a young age. Whereas, it seemed he never had to lift a finger at home, thanks to his mother being so diligent. Men in our family don't do housework. It was his mother Catherine's mantra, suggesting a belief that it was a woman's role. While I admired her dedication to household chores, it resulted in Kent being clueless about even basic tasks like laundry. That was a source of quiet frustration for me. As I was pondering how to discuss this with Kent, I suddenly needed to use the restroom. Those who've been pregnant might understand, but at that time, I needed to go quite often. Sorry, I need to use the restroom. Again? Aren't you getting a bit old for this? When the belly grows, bathroom breaks become more frequent. How disgraceful. You're always complaining about your health lately. It's like living with an old woman. He then started a long rant about his grievances. But I was desperate to use the restroom. And frankly, I was uncomfortable with his incessant complaints and old woman comparisons, and just wanted to leave. When he finally took a breath, I need to use the restroom, I managed to say. But he snapped, I'm not done talking yet. Somehow, I endured his lengthy tirade and rushed to the restroom at the last possible moment. How uncool. Behind me, his voice could be heard muttering. Initially, his calm and unflappable demeanor was what attracted me to him. However, since finding out about the pregnancy, it feels like everything is backfiring. Moreover, he compares me to various people he reads about online. That celebrity was back to work right after giving birth, and her figure was perfect too. You'll be the same, right? I don't know, don't compare me to such incredible people so casually. You're both human, just give it a try. Don't disappoint me too much. Apparently, his expectations were ridiculously high. Besides, his information came from the internet, but he naively believed dubious facts. Every time we met, it led to such conversations, creating a tense atmosphere between us. Around the same time our baby was conceived, he started spending less time at home. Our arguments like the ones I just mentioned were one reason, but he also began going out at night or on weekends, claiming it was for work. That was not something we had seen in our life together before. He was the exact opposite of the increasingly popular image of a cooperative, involved father. One night, when he came home late, I decided to confront him. You've been busy with work lately, haven't you? I'm cultivating new clients, it's none of your business. But Kent, have you been drinking? This is my refreshment. Stop nagging. His voice was so loud it could be heard outside. Sure enough, I could smell the alcohol on his breath. You never had to drink after work before. What's going on? You wouldn't understand. Besides. Thus, his sneering began anew. You're just lazing around at home while I work every day. This isn't fair. I'm not lazing around. I'm quite busy preparing for the birth. That's no excuse to neglect the household chores. You don't even put on makeup anymore. It's like you're using pregnancy as an excuse to abandon your femininity. That's terrible. Holding back tears, I went to put his bag on the shelf, when something small fell to the floor with a clatter. What are they? Wireless earbuds? I picked them up casually and studied them closely. They were small, shaped like earrings, and in a cute pink color that many women would like. Don't touch my bag without permission. That's an invasion of privacy. I always do this. But Kent, you don't usually use earbuds, right? If they're lost, we should return them. That's for me to worry about. Just focus on your chores. Why can't you even manage that properly? His reaction was far too intense for just pointing out a lost item. As I was about to respond, I felt a dull impact in my abdomen. He had kicked me. Don't forget you're being provided for. Keep your unnecessary comments to yourself, or I'll have to rethink things. I couldn't grasp what had just happened to me. After he stormed off to his room, I sat on the floor in a daze, replaying the recent events. I couldn't see how I had done anything to deserve being kicked. I couldn't comprehend his reaction. The next day, just to be safe, I went to the hospital to check on my baby. I couldn't dare say my husband had kicked me, so I lied that I had fallen at home. Fortunately, there were no abnormalities with the baby, but the area where I was kicked was bruised and discolored. Amidst that, some good news arrived. My best friend Sarah had given birth. She had gone to university in England and I heard she settled there for work, but apparently, she had returned to the US. Ideally, I would have brought Kent along, reuniting the trio of friends after such a long time, but unfortunately, he was away on a business trip. Reluctantly, I went to congratulate her by myself. In the bright, sunlit hospital room, Sarah lay in bed, looking relieved. As I entered the room, she struggled to sit up. "It's been a while. Congratulations on your baby." "Thank you. I actually came back to the US about a year ago but couldn't get in touch, sorry. I'm just glad the baby is safely here." She looked more refined than when she was a student, more grown up. By her pillow, I noticed earbuds identical to the ones I found in Kent's bag. She seemed to notice my gaze. "Oh, these? They're my favorite. I lost one recently, but my honey found it for me." "Really? What's your husband like?" "Actually, we're not married yet." "You know what? The guy is." Her words were interrupted by a knock on the door. Entering the room was none other than Kent. I was so shocked, I couldn't speak. "You must be surprised. Actually, I'm dating Kent now." She seemed unaware that we were married. She smiled innocently before my eyes. "Hey, long time no see. How's it going?" Kent's shameless demeanor pushed my confusion to the max. It's a reunion of the trio. I started seeing Kent again after returning from England. But with all the paperwork, we haven't married yet. "I see. As you can tell, I'm also expecting a baby." I felt an overwhelming urge to reveal everything. But I paused, regaining a bit of calm. I had a baby in my womb. I had to protect my child and myself. I pondered the most effective way to handle this predicament. In the end, I decided to keep things peaceful for now. My husband is on a business trip right now. I really wanted to bring him along today. "That's a shame. I wanted to meet your husband." "It's really unfortunate. But having a husband like yours who accompanies her must be infinitely better." "My husband doesn't help out at all." I secretly glared at Kent. He deliberately looked away. "You two look so happy together, I'm almost jealous." Oh dear, to be the odd one out in our trio of friends. "Sarah, Kent, I hope you find happiness, no matter what." Sarah nodded with a full-faced smile, while Kent did awkwardly in return. "By the way, this is a gift for the baby. I heard you can never have too many bibs, so I got these. I even got matching ones for my baby." "That's adorable, thank you. You must be excited about your baby too, Lucy. After a healthy delivery, we should all go out together." At the mention of all of us, Kent's shoulders twitched slightly. I pretended not to notice and continued smiling cheerfully. "Hey, let's take a photo while we're here. Sarah, hold the baby. And Kent, get in close." I captured the moment of Sarah holding the baby with Kent beside her in a photo. With a forced smile plastered on my face, I left the hospital room. Before I realized it, I was breathing heavily, my shoulders heaving. From beyond the door, I could hear Sarah's excited voice and Kent's low murmurs. Upon leaving the hospital, I hurried home. I opened my mobile phone and immediately contacted a real estate agent. "Yes, I know it's sudden, but I want to sell my house." "Yes, right away is fine. I want to complete the process quickly. Could you also refer me to a moving company?" I made arrangements to sell the house and contracted a moving company that the real estate agent recommended. Next, I called my in-laws. "Catherine? Due to some urgent matters with Kent, I'll be sending over some belongings. Don't be alarmed by the amount." Right, I had decided to erase the house I lived in, as if it never existed. Kent said he would be away on a business trip until the next day. He's probably planning to stay somewhere tonight. While part of me wanted to send the belongings directly to Catherine's house without warning, she wasn't to blame. At least I informed her. After finishing these tasks, I noticed incoming calls from Kent. In fact, since leaving the hospital, he had been calling incessantly. I ignored them and read a book. Then, a message came in. "Let's talk, just the two of us." What was there to talk about in that situation? Moreover, since the incident where he kicked my abdomen, a sense of caution towards him had sprouted in my mind. At that time, the caution had turned into suspicion, and I didn't even want to hear his voice. Once home, I immediately started packing. I entered his room and without hesitation began boxing up his belongings. Fortunately, it was the off-season for moving. I was able to sign up for a plan where the movers would help pack, making the shipping process smoother than expected. All that was left was to send my own belongings. After contacting my parents, they rushed over and the move was completed promptly. There was something I found in Kent's room. It was a partially completed divorce application. He was planning to leave me for Sarah and marry her. It seemed convenient, so I filled in the rest of the divorce application and decided to keep it safe. Just then, I received a call from Catherine.
Lucy, I knew you were sending some things over, but I had no idea it would be this much. What on earth happened?
The truth is, Kent has been having an affair. Do you remember Sarah from high school? It seems he has a child with her. I could sense her shock over the phone. Despite feeling sorry for her, I continued, I'm sorry, but I have proof. I'll send you a photo. I sent her the photo I took in the hospital room of Sarah, the baby, and Kent together.
I don't want to believe it, but it's true, isn't it?
I wish it wasn't. But it is. I'll be staying at my parents' house from tonight. She apparently tried to contact Kent after that, but couldn't reach him. When she asked if I knew where he might be, I unexpectedly replied that he was no longer family to me. She understood my determination from my response. That evening, I took my essentials and returned to my parents' house, sleeping peacefully in my old room. The next morning, Kent contacted me.
Hey! Our house is empty and there's a for sale sign up. What's going on?
Don't you understand? Your home isn't there anymore. For now, your belongings are at your parents' house. I'm changing the locks tomorrow, so coming back would be pointless.
What have you done? Let's talk, at least.
Fine. How about this afternoon at your parents' house? I'll contact your mother. I ended the call quickly and started preparing to go out. That afternoon, the involved parties gathered at my in-laws' house. Kent's parents, my parents, Kent, and me. Catherine's face was noticeably pale. Surprisingly, she was the first to speak.
Kent, is it true that you've been having an affair with your friend Sarah?
Affair? No, we just started dating later, that's all.
I don't want to hear excuses. And now there's a child involved.
Looks like we were just really compatible. The next moment, Catherine punched Kent.
What have you done? Lucy is carrying your child. How could you face her?
I had never seen the usually calm and elegant her like that. A trickle of blood ran from Kent's nose, but he seemed unaware.
Ouch. What are you doing? It's natural for a child to come from a loving relationship. How can you even say that?
I interrupted the parent-child argument. First of all, how did you end up dating Sarah?
I ran into her at the bus terminal while I was out on business. She had just returned to the US and was busy with a new job. She had a charm you didn't, Lucy.
That's not a reason to start a relationship, is it?
Ever since high school, I actually liked Sarah. But she was out of reach, so I settled for you.
I was speechless at his brazen words.
Meeting Sarah again and reminiscing made me realize she didn't have bad feelings for me. There's no reason to stop us now.
He had kept his marriage a secret from Sarah. When Sarah became pregnant soon after they started dating, he considered divorcing me. Around the same time, I became pregnant too. He reached that point without the courage to divorce or the determination to remarry.
How can you justify such selfishness? Aren't you ashamed of two-timing? Sarah and Lucy are completely different. Reuniting with Sarah made me realize how unsatisfied I was with Lucy. I plan to remarry Sarah and step up as a man. Don't be absurd. To think my son could do something like this, I'm so disappointed.
Catherine's anger knew no bounds.
If that's how you feel, our parent-child bond is over. You're also fired from the company. You're on your own from now on. That's fine by me.
Honestly, I was skeptical. Could Kent, who had only worked in a small family business, really handle another job?
You have no idea. The reason you could work till now is thanks to Lucy's salon.
What?
Lucy's salon? That small town shop doesn't significantly impact my performance. The only reason you had any success was because her shop promoted our products. Ungrateful.
Listening silently, my parents announced they would cease business with Kent's company.
It can't be helped. I'll start my own business.
I'm still young, I can learn. With Sarah returning to work soon after giving birth, our new life is secure. I muttered into my mobile phone, so he says. Suddenly, a loud voice echoed, "Are you stupid?" From the beginning of the discussion, I had been on a video call with Sarah. If I knew you were married to Lucy, I wouldn't have been involved. It's like I'm betraying her too. I'm speechless at your naivety. Frankly, you lack talent as a business person. Why are you there? I got in touch with Lucy and decided to join this discussion. I'm glad I heard everything. I never want to see you again. Wait, don't leave me. Why should I be with someone as awful as you? I'll raise the baby alone, just don't show your face. Of course, I will expect child support. Realizing remarriage was off the table, Kent suddenly turned to me, almost pleading. Lucy, I was wrong. Let's forget everything and raise our child together. Continue this marriage with such a despicable man? No way. I can't forget the terrible things you've done. The shock of seeing he appear in Sarah's hospital room was fresh in my mind. Don't spoil the mood. Isn't your kindness your best quality? Unable to give up, he was staring intently at me. His mouth agape, his nose bloodied and clotted, he was a picture of disgrace. I shook my head slowly. Just because things didn't work out with Sarah, you think you can come back to me? That's too convenient. But what about you? You'll struggle too, won't you? How do you plan to raise the child? I have skills, and I'm much better off without a husband like you. I'm not foolish enough to cling to a foolish man. My parents had discussed it with me on the previous day, and they assured me of their full support. Being in customer service, they have good contacts with reputable law firms. I presented the divorce application I had found in his drawer. As you can see, the divorce application is all set. All that's left is to file it. Let's quickly settle the compensation and child support. Wait, I have to pay both Sarah and you. Of course. I am your wife, after all. But don't think I'll overlook any negligence towards Sarah's situation either. I have a lawyer ready. He was at his wit's end. At that moment, I felt an unprecedented pain in my abdomen. Oh my, it hurts. My labor had started right at that moment. The discussion was obviously adjourned, and I was rushed to the local hospital by my parents. From there, everything happened so quickly. Exhausted from the stress of the discussion and the labor, I fell into a deep sleep in the hospital bed. Even when the nurses woke me up occasionally, I barely opened my eyes. After being discharged and returning home with my baby, I asked my parents about the current situation. My mother, as a hairdresser, had subtly spread rumors about Kent among her clients. Our customers are mostly housewives. A word or two from her was exaggerated and spread quickly throughout the town. On the other hand, Kent tried to start an internet sales company, something he was always interested in. He seemed to have underestimated personal connections, seeking solace in the internet. However, his capabilities did not match the power of word of mouth. The rumors prevented him from finding a bank to finance his business, and it failed to take off. He tasted the bitter consequences of underestimating the local community network he had belittled. There was another thing that damaged him. The video call with Sarah. She had used another camera to record the entire discussion. She edited Kent's selfish behavior into a short video and spread it among our high school classmates. As a result, he lost all his friends, and those who might have helped him also turned away. He was left to solve everything on his own. He was immediately kicked out of his family home and spent his days in a motel, depleting his savings while searching for a new home and job. Being unemployed and without a stable address, it was hard for him to settle down. Eventually, he moved to a distant land as it became uncomfortable for him to stay in the city. He finally found a part-time day job, struggling with the unfamiliar physical labor. Sure, there was no mercy. I warned him that if he ever missed a child support payment, I would sue him for assault for kicking me in the stomach. The photos I took of my injuries in case something happened to the baby proved to be useful. The medical records from when I was treated at the hospital for the injuries would also serve as significant evidence. I filed the divorce papers, and almost concurrently with giving birth, I became a single mother. I was not living alone though. I rent a house and decided to live with Sarah. It was the four of us, Sarah, our babies, and me. The children got along as if they were siblings. Sarah and I were best friends to begin with. With Kent out of the picture, our friendship as women only grew stronger. When one of us needed to step out, the other would take care of both babies, allowing us to manage work and have some time to refresh. We're already talking about taking our kids to the park together for the first time once they're a bit older. For now, I'm looking forward to enjoying this comfortable life. I was sick in bed, which caused a huge delay in preparing for Christmas. While I was busily working, my husband Oliver had gone out somewhere. Entering Oliver's room, I noticed a bag sticking out of a drawer. I picked it up. Inside the bag was an SD card. Seeing it placed with a message card that read "For Oliver," I had a bad feeling. Just as Oliver returned home, I waited for him to take a shower and sneaked back into his room to check the contents on the computer. "What is this?" I was shocked at the footage. At the same time, anger surged through me. I'm going to divorce him. Determined, I gathered our relatives at our home the next day. "Now, please look at this." As my voice caught the attention of the relatives and Oliver towards the TV, I pressed the play button. The scene that appeared left our relatives speechless and Oliver pale. Why? To Oliver, who turned to me in disbelief, I smiled and handed him the divorce papers. I will never forgive him. I'll make him regret this. My name is Sophia. A 34-year-old housewife. My parents passed away early, but thanks to a large inheritance and the kindness of the neighbors, I could pursue my dream job as a preschool teacher. I resigned from teaching when I was 30. To marry my childhood friend, Oliver. The catalyst for our relationship was my parents' accidental death. Being a high school student and facing college entrance exams, I didn't want to move. I was determined to attend the college my parents had supported. However, my relatives, eyeing the large inheritance left by my parents, tried to take me in. Almost strangers to me, their intentions felt creepy. Oliver, my husband-to-be, shooed these relatives away when I was vulnerable from losing my parents. Oliver, the eldest son of our neighboring family, was like an older brother to me. In front of the relatives, he declared, "We'll take care of her. We have permission from my parents, so no complaints. Sophia will be my wife in the future." Surprised by Oliver's words, who I had always seen as a brother, he turned out to be serious, confessing his feelings later. His earnest nature and the security he provided became my solace, and we started dating. Oliver always prioritized me, and eventually, I genuinely fell in love with him. When I became comfortable in my job as a preschool teacher, he proposed. I meant what I said when we were students. My feelings haven't changed. I will make you happy, marry me. Absolutely. Overwhelmed, I accepted his proposal with tears. Telling his parents, they rejoiced, and we celebrated that night. After marrying and 2 years of marriage, I retired to become a housewife. Oliver had requested me to become a housewife, something that triggered this change. Though it was sad to leave my dream job, I decided to focus on having children and use my experience in parenting. Oliver has a younger sister. Emma, my sister-in-law, was my classmate since kindergarten. She was also my best friend and colleague at the childcare center. Emma had mixed feelings about me marrying Oliver. That is because she and Oliver don't get along. Oliver has always been kind to you, but unreasonable to me. Really? Absolutely. I often listened without arguing, as Emma insisted. According to Emma, she was delighted to have me as a relative. But not as Oliver's wife. Pretending to lament, she often complained about marrying her disliked brother. From my perspective, though Oliver might be somewhat cold to Emma, it was clear they were still connected by blood. However, Emma didn't seem to think so, often showing dissatisfaction when I suggested this. Sophia, you say that because you don't know Oliver's true face. I wonder. I always responded, doubting Emma's claims. Looking back, I regret not paying more attention, but at that time, I thought it was just sibling dynamics. But even after 5 years of marriage, we didn't have any children. Then, I noticed a gradual change in Oliver's attitude. At first, he complained about our housework being split equally since I became a housewife, and soon, I was doing 90% of it. Without kids and just relaxing at home all day, you could at least do a bit more housework, right? These unkind words, something the old Oliver would never say, hurt me, but I accepted them as my duty as a housewife. From there, Oliver started to push more household responsibilities on me, citing my role as a housewife. One day, while visiting my in-laws, Oliver suddenly started belittling me, laughing. "Sophia's cooking is just awful. And her cleaning is so sloppy, can't she do something about it?" The living room fell silent, but Oliver didn't notice. In fact, he began to mock me even more. "The laundry is also carelessly done, she hardly works at all for a housewife." I could feel Emma getting irritated beside me. Isabella, my mother-in-law, smiled, but her eyes weren't laughing. I had to say something. "I might be a bit absent-minded at times, so maybe Oliver finds me lacking in some ways. But there's a way to say things." Emma glared at Oliver as she spoke. Oliver glared back, and the living room atmosphere turned tense. Then Lucas, as my father-in-law, began to speak calmly. "A husband should help with his wife's shortcomings. Besides, Sophia always helps us out a lot." Oliver, discontented, kept quiet at Lucas's words. Emma was still angry, but Isabella calmed her down. The mood was ruined because of Oliver's words. I tried to lighten the mood, clapping my hands and smiling. "Hey! I made a cake, would you like to have some? Sophia's cakes are delicious. I'm so happy, let's eat." Emma's mood brightened instantly, and I felt relieved. Then Isabella, Emma, and I moved to the kitchen. "Sorry about Oliver earlier. We know how hard you always work, Sophia. Don't push yourself too much." "Isabella, thank you." Isabella's kind words almost brought me to tears. Returning to the living room, Oliver sat turned away, looking more upset than before. "I brought the cake." "I don't want it." "But it's your favorite pumpkin cake." "I said I don't want it." As Oliver yelled, the plate with the cake disappeared from my hands. Looking down, the smashed cake was stuck to the floor. "Oliver! Apologize to Sophia! It's her fault for forcing it on me." Oliver, though looking confused, refused to apologize to me. I was a little saddened. He used to apologize immediately in the past. "That's awful. Sophia, you should divorce him." "What? Don't be ridiculous. It's not your decision to make." Emma and Oliver started bickering, ignoring me, and their argument heated up. "Unlovable women can't get married. When I get married is none of your business." I desperately tried to calm down the shouting Emma. Oliver, looking at us in disdain, laughed and left, saying he was going out for a drink. "Oliver's been going out a lot lately. Yeah, he never tells me where he's going." "Don't worry too much, I'll ask around too." I thanked the ever-kind Isabella. My in-laws always doted on me, treating me like their own daughter. They scolded me when I was wrong, feeling like a second set of parents. Part of the reason I married Oliver was because of my relationship with my in-laws. The thought of becoming a family with my beloved in-laws and Emma made me happy. But it was true that I still loved Oliver. However, since then, Oliver's treatment of me became increasingly harsh. "I'm going out." "Again? Where have you been going every weekend recently?" "Anywhere I want." After a while, Oliver started going out somewhere every weekend. Sometimes even staying overnight, but he stubbornly refused to tell me where. Moreover, he was always angry, and our usual conversations diminished. I once asked if I had done something wrong. But I never got a satisfying answer. Amidst this, as Christmas approached, I fell ill. Isabella came to help at our house. It took about a week to fully recover, and I had to start preparing for Christmas slowly, dragging my heavy body around, since Oliver wouldn't help. I was sick in bed, which caused a huge delay in preparing for Christmas. While I was busily working, Oliver had gone out somewhere. Entering Oliver's room, I noticed a bag sticking out of a drawer. I picked it up. Inside the bag was an SD card. Seeing it with a message card that read "For Oliver," I had a bad feeling. Just as Oliver returned home, I waited for him to take a shower and sneaked back into his room to check the contents on the computer.
What is this?
I was speechless at the footage. At the same time, anger surged through me. I'm going to divorce him. Determined, I gathered our relatives at our in-laws' house the next day.
Now, please look at this.
As my voice directed the relatives and Oliver towards the TV, I pressed the play button. The scene that appeared left our relatives speechless, and Oliver turned pale. Why? As Oliver looked at me in disbelief, I smiled and handed him the divorce papers. I will never forgive him, I'll make him regret this. Seeing the divorce papers, Oliver's face turned even bluer.
Wait, hold on. Divorce is too sudden.
What are you talking about? After seeing that video, there's no other option but divorce. Oliver felt silent at my words. The content of the SD card was a childbirth scene. Of course, it wasn't mine. A young woman was struggling through labor. At first, I wondered why such a thing existed, but then I recognized the man beside the woman. It was unmistakably Oliver, stroking the woman's head and encouraging her.
Keep going!
I couldn't mistake Oliver's voice, having known him since childhood.
This is... I was just standing in, it's not what you think. Don't lie to me.
I turned up the volume on the TV. Then a conversation between the woman and Oliver filled the living room.
Evelyn! It's almost time! Our child is about to be born! Oliver, yes, I'll keep going!
After their conversation, a baby's cry could be heard. Then Oliver kissed the woman named Evelyn, thanking her repeatedly.
You did great. You worked so hard.
I did it for you, my love. I love you too. Oh, Evelyn. I can't wait to live with you and our child. Me either. After saying that and kissing again, the video stopped. The relatives in the living room were stunned, and my in-laws and Emma were visibly trembling with anger.
Well, after watching this, no one would believe he was just standing in as a proxy. This is... I just got carried away, it was just an act of a father.
Lucas is usually a calm person, suddenly stepped forward and slapped Oliver. Oliver held his cheek in shock. Lucas was a gentleman who only got angry when necessary, and had never resorted to physical action. Everyone was surprised by this.
Do you understand what you're saying? Don't you feel sorry for Sophia? But this is...
Even then, Oliver tried desperately to explain himself. Emma spoke up in a calm voice.
I've always disliked you, but I thought I could maintain our relationship if you cherished my best friend. But someone who hurts my important friend can't be considered family. I'm cutting ties with you.
At Emma's words, Oliver's face turned red with anger.
You, a younger sister, are so presumptuous. If you want to cut ties, go ahead. It's a relief.
Then I'll cut ties too.
Eh?
Oliver froze at Isabella's words, said with a smile. He tries to hide it, but Oliver is quite the mama's boy. I like Isabella too, so it never really bothered me, but to be honest, I didn't really like how he clung to her, even nearing 40. Oliver seemed bewildered by Isabella's declaration of cutting ties.
But I'm the eldest son, right? Mom, you're joking about cutting ties, right?
Do you think I'm someone who would joke in this situation?
No.
Isabella never lost her smile. That made it even scarier, and the whispering relatives straightened up and began listening quietly to her. Isabella continued in a calm and steady voice. Don't worry about us. After all, we have Sophia. If she remarries someone wonderful and has children, they will be our grandchildren.
What? If she divorces, she's a stranger, right?
Not just Isabella, but Lucas, Emma, and I all sighed heavily at Oliver's response. In fact, after marrying, I had been legally adopted by my in-laws. It wasn't necessary, but my own relatives, eyeing my parents' inheritance, often pressured me into an adoption agreement. Your parents' inheritance is yours to use as you wish. But to protect you from those relatives, why don't you consider being legally adopted by us? After my parents passed away, my in-laws never asked me for money. I had prepared tuition and living expenses from my inheritance and gave the living expenses to my in-laws. However, they didn't touch it, saying it was important money, and when I got a job, they even added a celebration gift and returned it to me. I initially refused, but they insisted, so I gratefully accepted. Because of this history, I trusted Isabella's words. That's why I consulted with Oliver and got legally adopted right after our marriage. It seemed Oliver had completely forgotten about it.
No, but even if I was adopted, I'm the eldest son, the real child. That's right. I have a child. This house is mine.
Oliver, as if he had remembered something important, was met with laughter from Isabella. What are you talking about? As of today, you are no longer my child. Well, legally you'll still be my child, but we'll have to renounce your inheritance. Oliver was speechless at the decisive words. Tears streamed down his face from the rejection of his beloved Isabella. I added to Oliver's misery. By the way, do you know why I called everyone here today? Oliver looked at me, puzzled. His tear-stained face was dirty. I felt a bit pathetic for having loved such a pitiful man. Christmas was always celebrated at my in-laws' house. They were landowners in the area, with many relatives nearby. There was no other place that could accommodate our large family of nearly 50 people. But this time, we limited the number of people, having only families with children come from the relative side. So, there were only about 20 people in the living room, half of the usual number. It seemed Oliver hadn't even noticed that. After I pointed it out, he finally realized.
There are no children? But I hear crying. Are they in another room?
Oh, actually, we have a guest today. Please, come in. At my words, Emma stood up and opened the door at the back. There stood Evelyn, confidently with a baby in her arms. Evelyn stood there, holding the baby. Her demeanor saying she belonged and was welcomed.
Nice to meet you, Isabella. I'm Evelyn. This is Liam, our son, the fruit of my love with Oliver.
Evelyn said this cheerfully, but Isabella frowned. Though behind a door, she must have heard the conversation. But then I noticed the earphones in Evelyn's hands.
Were you listening to music in the next room?
Yeah, I was bored. Evelyn's attitude towards Isabella was starkly indifferent. She acted as if she was the rightful wife, and I was irritated, but realized she would soon be.
Do you know why you were invited today? Isn't it because you're getting a divorce? And then I'll be Oliver's wife. We have Liam too, so it's a celebration, right?
Her naive thinking made me sigh. In this atmosphere, thinking it's a celebration is just unbelievable. Oliver was frozen by the suddenness of it all, but seeing Evelyn's cluelessness seemed to bring him back to reality. Evelyn, we're in the middle of a difficult conversation. I'll contact you later, just wait a little longer.
I can't wait anymore. Write the divorce papers now.
Evelyn said this, handing a pen to Oliver. Then she looked at me, smirking in a mocking way. Sophia, was it? Thank you for your service until today. From now on, I will be the one receiving Oliver's love. Even with her triumphant tone, I just found it outright creepy. Since I saw that video of the childbirth scene, my love for Oliver is completely lost. I don't need his love, even if he begged me to take it. But to Evelyn, it seemed like I was regretful. Sorry about that. Oliver says I have firmer skin and am prettier to hold than you. He said you're like a skinny chicken. Evelyn laughed dismissively, with Oliver awkwardly trying to stop her. The onlookers' eyes were cold towards the two of them. I decided to respond with a smile and addressed Evelyn's comment.
No, thank you for keeping him company.
I don't need him anymore, so please take him. Evelyn's eyebrows twitched slightly at my words. She seemed about to say something, but I ignored her and continued. Well, you're getting a man who's about to be disowned, lose his house and job, and become poor. Evelyn's face clouded over. She probably thought that after Oliver and I divorced, she would stay in this house. While thinking how she would have known otherwise if she had listened earlier, I continued to smile at Evelyn. Oliver, wait. Sophia's the one leaving, right? This is Oliver's house, right? I'm becoming your wife, right? You said I could be the housewife. Evelyn confronted Oliver. Oliver looked uncomfortable and avoided her gaze. Oliver, look at me. What are we going to do? I quit my job, remember? You said Liam could stay with Isabella and we'd live in luxury. Evelyn started to freak out, scratching her hair. Startled by her shouting, Liam also began to cry, his cries echoing in the living room. I reluctantly took Liam from Evelyn and held him. He must be about 4 months old, just starting to hold his head up, and he was very cute. When I gently rocked him, he calmed down and fell asleep again. Relieved, I noticed Evelyn glaring at me. Give him back! That's my and Oliver's child. The grandchild of this house. He just fell asleep, so please don't raise your voice. While I was speaking, Evelyn snatched Liam back from me and returned him to the baby carrier. Liam woke up for a moment, but fell asleep again as Evelyn rocked him. I looked at her, relieved. Evelyn was glaring at me as if I were her sworn enemy. You think you can just take Liam away? You're useless. A woman who can't get pregnant should leave this house. At Evelyn's words, I realized Oliver hadn't told her about that incident. It was about why I quit my job as a preschool teacher. Evelyn, didn't Oliver tell you why we didn't have children? I don't know. Isn't it because you're not loved? Evelyn said this, looking triumphant. As if she was superior as a woman. But that didn't matter to me. Oliver was pale-faced in the background, but I continued, revealing the truth. Oliver, I've always been unable to have children. Evelyn's momentum stopped abruptly, as if it were a lie. The surrounding relatives were also stunned. Actually, I quit my job after having a miscarriage. I wanted children so badly, I went for a checkup for the first time when I tried to conceive. Oliver also had tests done with me. The results showed no issues with me, but Oliver had a condition making it difficult for him to have children. It wasn't impossible, but a natural conception was highly unlikely. The pregnancy we had was a miracle, but it ended due to genetic issues. I was sad, but wanted to try again. Oliver felt the same, so we started fertility treatments. Fortunately, there was still plenty of inheritance left, so I quit my job on Oliver's suggestion, to focus on my health. However, we saw no success with the treatments, and when we started considering adoption, Oliver became reluctant. Looking back, he probably started his affair during our treatments, and Evelyn's pregnancy came to light around the time we talked about adoption. Evelyn turned pale upon hearing this and looked at Oliver. So, Evelyn, is Liam really Oliver's child? It's not impossible, right? Our love. Her talking about love at this point was just absurd. I smiled and said again. That's why I said, natural conception is almost impossible. But. Evelyn was flustered, trying to make excuses. Emma cut her off. Stop lying. You're my friend's wife, right? What? Oliver looked at Emma, wide-eyed. Emma nodded at me and showed Evelyn her mobile phone screen. It showed Evelyn and Liam, a man, and a 4-year-old girl I didn't know. I had contacted Emma after watching the video the day before. Emma recognized Evelyn from the photo on SNS, belonging to a man she knew. I knew it was Evelyn by her name and face. We work at the same place and talk often. You're married? Oliver asked, but Evelyn didn't answer. Her expression confirmed Emma's words were true. It was a shotgun wedding, right? No talk of divorce, and this photo says Liam is that man's child. Ah, no. True love, huh? Pretending your husband's child is another man's, to switch to a richer man. Is it the money you love? Emma looked down on Evelyn with disdain. Evelyn, red-faced and shaking, didn't know how to respond and just looked down. By the way, I've called that man, he'll be here soon. No! It was just a moment of weakness. Please don't tell my husband. It's too late for that. At Emma's words, the doorbell rang, and Evelyn collapsed in despair. A relative opened the door, and Evelyn's husband, Henry, came in. He saw Evelyn and immediately shouted in anger. You've been cheating on me? What were you thinking? It's not like that. It's a misunderstanding. I heard everything on the phone. Realizing there was no escape, Evelyn froze in tears. Henry took Liam from her and stood up. Then apologized to us. My wife has caused you a lot of trouble. We will divorce. Wait, I don't want a divorce. Henry looked down on Evelyn coldly. You promised to stop after the affair 3 years ago. And you continued. I'll raise the child. You won't see him again. We were shocked by Henry's words. I couldn't believe that even though he had noticed it once, he continued to do it behind the scenes. Such audacity to claim a momentary lapse. 3 years ago, huh? No, Sophia, it's not like that. What's different? Going around marking your territory elsewhere? At my words, Oliver just trembled, barely moving his mouth. I'm not usually one to get angry. But Emma once told me it's scary when I do. I'd hardly ever been angry with Oliver, so he seemed surprised by my attitude. I'm disappointed in you. I can't believe you've been betraying your family for so long. I tried to get you and Emma to reconcile, but it looks like I was the one who couldn't see clearly. Emma nodded as if to say, finally you understand. Oliver was stunned by my straightforwardness. I'll be asking for compensation. And of course, child support. Eh? I touched my stomach. I had been keeping it a secret, except from Emma, planning to announce it at Christmas. I was pregnant. The reason I'd been feeling unwell recently was morning sickness. After entering the stable period, I planned to surprise my parents and Oliver. The artificial insemination worked. It's truly your child. I kept quiet because I didn't want to get your hopes up and then disappoint you. So. Oliver collapsed, overwhelmed by my words. Evelyn, too, seemed drained of all energy to argue after hearing about my pregnancy and her own impending divorce. Then, please fill out the divorce papers. I said this and handed Oliver a pen. Then I left the house first with Emma. By now, Oliver must be getting glared at by the in-laws while filling out the divorce papers. Feeling refreshed after saying everything I wanted, I enjoyed a leisurely tea party with Emma. Later, Oliver and I finalized our divorce. Since his job was with a family company, he was fired due to this incident and ended up penniless and out of the house. Evelyn got divorced too and initially demanded money from Oliver. But seeing his situation, she quickly disappeared. In the end, Oliver had been working in a rundown snack bar to pay for the alimony and child support, but rumors have it that he was caught by some bad customers and taken away. I know about this because Emma, laughing about the fleeting nature of true love, told me. It was information from Henry, Evelyn's ex-husband. Lately, he's been going out more with his children, and it seems that Oliver's story comes up in their conversations. Henry, in fact, was the one Emma had a crush on during her student days. Though he reciprocated her feelings, he married Evelyn when she got pregnant. Emma denies it, but her blushing suggests that maybe, just maybe, spring is near for her. After Oliver left, my in-laws were initially down, but they recovered while I was busy with pregnancy preparations. Now they dote on their grandchild, becoming loving grandparents. At first, they were hesitant, feeling guilty towards me, but eventually, they began treating me like their real daughter again. Living together since birth, Emma jokes about how it's hard to tell who is the real daughter now. As for me, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl without any trouble. She's a very cute girl. I hope she grows up to be bright and cheerful like Emma, my friend and now sister, who I admire. Sophia. She won't stop crying. Okay, I'm coming. I hear my daughter's cries and Emma's troubled voice from the living room. Smiling, I responded and left the balcony. Outside, the sky is clear and cloudless. A future full of promises awaits us. Just like this bright blue sky. I got a huge sum of money, and you just got an old house and a mere field? My brother Robin, who unexpectedly received a large inheritance, mocks me. To think that this is how they treat their daughter who has always taken care of and nursed them. You must not have been loved. His words are infuriating, but I don't talk back. Just you wait. I won't let this setback keep me down. Driven by anger towards Robin, I worked hard to restore the neglected field. My name is Carol, a 50-year-old housewife. I've been married to my husband Justin for 25 years, and our children have all grown up and become independent. I thought we could live a peaceful and enjoyable life together, just the two of us. But life doesn't always go as planned. As soon as our children became independent, I began to take care of our parents. Justin's parents had passed away long ago, so the ones I cared for were my own. My parents, who ran a farm, were always confident in their physical strength and were the picture of health. I often helped them, especially during the harvest season. The freshly picked vegetables were truly delicious. Juicy and sweet vegetables. I fondly remember them because I can no longer savor that taste. My parents couldn't defy aging and had to retire as their legs grew weaker. I really wanted to continue for longer. My father Stuart said with a weak smile. I wish I could let Carol taste those vegetables again. My mother Olivia expressed her regret. It would have been great if Robin had taken over. My father said, feeling down. I have an older brother, Robin, 2 years older than me. Robin has always been irresponsible, acting on a whim and doing whatever he pleases. He barely attended high school and eventually dropped out, claiming it was too much trouble. He left home, never settling into a steady job, working odd jobs here and there, and then would suddenly return home to demand money from our parents. Yet, because he is their son, they couldn't be harsh to him. Robin also stopped visiting the house after our parents quit farming. There will be no money received from parents living on a pension, he used to say. If there's no money, he has no business with them. As much as he is my brother, he's the worst. I try to forget such brother exists, but he's still family. Sometimes, even my parents would worry. I wonder if that child is doing all right. They would say. But after they quit farming, they aged quickly. Maybe things would have been different if they had continued farming, even just as a hobby. By the time I started regretting it, they had already aged significantly and both became bedridden. Sorry, Carol. We're causing you trouble. My apologetic father and mother were met with my smiling denial. I am who I am today because of you both. Let me repay you. As I said this, my mother teared up and thanked me. Taking care of them was hard work, but my children were already independent, and I wasn't working since I was a housewife. I had thought about getting a part-time job once the kids were independent, but we weren't struggling financially, so I could put that off. After discussing with Justin, I decided to stay at my parents' house to take care of them. I don't think they have much time left. The shock of hearing this from the doctor was immense. I called Robin, crying. Won't you come to see our parents? Irresponsible as he may be, Robin is still my brother. To our parents, he is their beloved son. Surely, Robin remembers being loved by them. That's why I wanted him to see them one last time, but Robin's answer was terrible. Huh? Why should I? I'm busy, you know. Busy? Are you working? Like I'd bother with that. Yeah, I'm doing day labor. I worked yesterday, so I thought I might go see some horses today. Going to see horses? You mean betting on horse racing, right? As expected, Carol, you know me well. What are you thinking? You prioritize gambling over visiting our parents? It's more important to me than life itself. You're the worst! Furious at Robin's extremely disappointing behavior, I hung up the phone. After that, Robin never came to visit our parents at all. Day by day, both of them continued to weaken. And then, suddenly, my father passed away, followed by my mother the next day. They were a loving couple until the end. Once I had finished crying, busy time awaited me. Organizing a funeral for both of them was a huge task. With Justin's help and our 2 sons, we somehow managed it. It should have been something to discuss and arrange with Robin, but he never showed up. I managed to contact him, but... Huh? Our parents' funeral? I'm busy, I won't come. Just handle it however on your end. And with that, he hung up the phone. Handle it however? That's not possible. Even at 52, Robin remains incredibly irresponsible. Angry at Robin, the tearful funeral came to an end. And then, some time later, Robin finally returned to our family home. It was outrageous he didn't even come to the funeral, but the reason for his return was simple. It was to discuss the inheritance. Hey, Carol, long time no see. You've aged quite a bit. Leave it alone. You've aged too, Robin. I'm still younger looking than you, since I'm single and didn't age from raising kids. Maybe I look like your younger brother now? I was appalled that these were his first words after meeting his sister for the first time in a while. Despite claiming to enjoy his bachelor life, Robin looked significantly aged. Did you visit their graves? Why would I do such a meaningless thing? Do you think the dead can see that? It's not about that. I was irritated by Robin's attitude, showing no sense of loss for our parents, but arguing with him was pointless. I decided it was best to get the discussion over with quickly and took my seat. Well then, let's proceed, please. I said this to the lawyer present. Indeed, our parents had prepared a proper will. Under the supervision of the lawyer, we began to open the will. What does it say? What's my share? Hold on a minute. Robin eagerly leaned in as soon as the envelope was opened. I sighed at his impatience. Before my exasperated gaze, the lawyer spread out the will. As a result, Robin was to inherit cash. I was to inherit the family home and the field, the workplace where our parents had toiled. Upon hearing this, Robin, haha, can you believe that? That's just great, isn't it hilarious? Bursted out laughing. Cash, it's this statement, right? Wow, $300,000? Is this for real? Amazing. Farming really pays off. Along with the will, there was a bank account statement kept by the lawyer. It was indeed a significant amount. For Robin, who never had a steady job and lived day to day, this was a fortune. I was also a bit surprised to learn such an amount was left behind. Though they worked hard, my parents, whose hobbies and entertainment were farming, probably didn't have much use for money. And? What about you, Carol? With a mocking smile, Robin looked at me, still laughing. His question revealed his unpleasant character, even though he had heard the contents of the will. This house and the field. Ha ha ha. Really? Robin, holding his stomach, laughed heartily. Patience, just be patient. I reminded myself desperately, trying to contain my anger. I get a huge sum of money, and you just get an old house and a mere field. Robin said amidst his intense laughter. This is how they treat their daughter who took care of and nursed them? You weren't loved at all. I felt my blood boil but somehow managed to hold back. Arguing here would be meaningless. Indeed, the value of this house and field combined doesn't come close to the cash amount Robin inherited. Our parents wanted me to keep this house and field, our family home. So, I must endure. I know better than anyone that my parents loved me. Well, the eldest son is always loved, right? And I was the favorite son. I can understand why our parents felt that way. Finally stopping his laughter, Robin flaunted the bank account statement right in front of my eyes. So, that's how it is. I'm taking this with me. As if it was that simple. I didn't want any disputes over the inheritance later. The lawyer had prepared the documents, so Robin signed them and left. The moment Robin was out of sight, "Never come back!" I shouted. I'll forget about Robin. Likely, I'll never meet him again. Forgetting such a despicable person is best, a realization that came to me a year after my parents passed away. After completing various inheritance documents and procedures, and as I was clearing out the now empty family home, time seemed to fly by. Now, the once busy family home was empty. I have a house built by Justin, and to live here, as Robin said, is too old-fashioned. Maybe I should sell it sensibly. But the thought of losing my childhood home feels sad. Lost in these thoughts, I sat in the empty house. Suddenly, my eyes caught sight of a hoe in the garden. In this day and age, it's rare to use a hoe. Yet, my father preferred to use it. Stored out of reach during my childhood for safety. The iron part was now completely rusted and the handle severely decayed. It barely retained its original shape, but I touched it gently. What came to mind was the image of my father joyfully working in the fields, sweating, with my mother laughing beside him. Those were nostalgic, dearly cherished times. Quietly closing my eyes and indulging in these memories, I opened them with resolve and decided. All right. Farming? Yeah. Well, it's more like an extension of home gardening, a hobby. Isn't that nice? Having inherited the field, I thought to try something with it. When I discussed it with Justin, he easily agreed. Really? It's the field your parents left behind, you should try it. I couldn't be more grateful for Justin's support. With advice from a farmer acquaintance of my father, I began tending to the neglected field. I tried growing the same vegetables my father did, as well as experimenting with new varieties. It turned out to be a challenging task. Farming is hard. I had some experience with home gardening. But this was a whole different level. Not just the vastness of it, but also because these weren't just vegetables for personal consumption. Doing it seriously is this tough. Reviving the depleted soil alone was a challenge. Deciding on the right vegetables for the soil was tough. What about the seasons? The pests? Wild birds, too, turned out to be adversaries. Not only did I have to grow the crops, but I also had to think about protective measures. The work didn't progress easily, and I encountered many failures. I can't believe you're doing all this. As a rich man like me, it's unimaginable. That was Robin, who had called just to look down on me. Somehow, he had heard that I had started farming and called to comment. As usual, his words were discouraging, so I quickly hung up. Forget it. I have to forget that. Channeling my anger towards Robin into motivation, I tirelessly worked on the field. Farming equipment, even secondhand, was expensive, but I considered it a necessary investment and used my savings. It's your savings, so I won't say anything. The generous Justin said that to me. Although it was my savings, any money I had from before I was married was long gone, and what I used was really money Justin had given me for my allowance, saved over time. Even so, Justin didn't mind and supported me, which moved me to tears. I fell in love with him all over again. My sons also helped, researching on the internet and sharing information with me. The farmers who were acquaintances of my father were all kind people. Apart from the infuriating Robin, I was truly in a blessed environment, which allowed me to focus on farming. What started as a hobby quickly became a passion, and I got serious about it. I guess I really am my parents' daughter. As I thought this, time passed by. And then, I did it. Finally, the first harvest from my field. Though the produce wasn't as succulent and sweet as my parents', the yield was modest. What mattered was that I had accomplished it. I felt satisfied. Hey, not bad for a first-timer. Those encouraging words came from Mike, a farmer who had been a great help. He had always been concerned about the condition of my field. Mike's praise, reminiscent of a man about the same age as my father, deeply touched my heart. Adjust the amount of fertilizer and water a bit more. Ah yes, Stuart used to use that particular fertilizer. There was still so much I didn't know. Gathering every bit of information I could, I was determined to get closer to replicating my parents' tastes. Gradually, the field became more impressive. What started as a small corner was now a fully tended field. Days of trial and error with various crops. Gradually, the quality of the vegetables I grew improved, and eventually...
Wow, another bountiful year.
Thank you. Please continue to supply to us.
Of course, thank you very much.
My vegetables had reached a point where they could be sold. I even gained a favored business partner. A TV station even came to do a feature on me, a housewife who started farming and found success. Before I knew it, the vegetables I grew had become popular. But I couldn't have done it alone. Many people helped me, and above all, it was the wisdom my father had passed on to me. Yet, there was still much to do. I was far from achieving the taste of my father's produce. As I clenched my fist, determined to work harder, that's when I heard it.
What's this all about?
A voice I thought I had pushed to the edge of my memory. As I was about to head to the field, I heard the forgotten voice and turned around.
Robin!
It had been years. I could barely recognize him as Robin, but there was still a semblance of him. It wasn't just aging.
Robin, you've changed so much.
Yeah, I'm shining, right? But forget that. Noticing my gaze fixed on his head, Robin yelled angrily. However, his anger didn't frighten me at all. It's almost laughable. I want to laugh. But I knew laughing would only make things more complicated, so I desperately tried to hold it back. My cheeks were trembling, trying to suppress a smile. What brings you here, Robin? It's been a long time. I thought we would never meet again. I never expected Robin to visit the family home again. Robin pointed to the house standing tall behind me.
What is this?
He yelled. What do you mean? It's the house where you were born and raised.
I know that. But it used to be dirtier. Why is it so clean now?
Indeed, the once old and dirty house I had considered selling had been refurbished and was now quite beautiful. Why? Because I had it repaired.
Where did you get the money for that?
I earned it.
How?
I wish he wouldn't yell every time. Although we are approaching our 60s, my hearing is still fine. You know I started farming, right? The vegetables I grew on the field I inherited became popular, and the business is thriving.
What?
After many struggles and hard work, my business had finally taken off. And then Robin showed up. I had a bad feeling, and as expected, Robin began to insinuate.
So, that field had great value, huh?
Huh? What are you talking about?
There's no way a complete amateur like you could run a profitable farming business so easily.
Of course, it wasn't easy at all.
That land must have been golden soil, right?
He completely disregarded all the hard work I'd put in. And what's this about golden soil?
It must have been incredibly nutrient-rich, powerful soil, right? You knew that and kept quiet.
No, what are you talking about?
I know the law. If a property is later found to be more valuable, the inheritance can be redivided. I'm going to file an objection. We'll redo the inheritance division, and I'll take the field.
Are you stupid?
Yes, I'm stupid. I mean, no, I'm not.
Honestly, he is being stupid. I don't know where he got his information, but flaunting such superficial knowledge is just foolish. Sighing deeply. The value of the field hasn't changed. I said.
Liar!
Why would I lie? If you doubt it, why don't you have a real estate agent or someone appraise the land?
You said it, then I'll do just that. You'll regret this.
I won't. The land prices around here haven't changed much since the beginning.
Really?
If you doubt it, ask a real estate agent, like I said. Robin's confidence seemed to wane as I firmly stated this. His face began to cloud over with doubt. But you're actually making a profit, right? It's because of the field, right? Because of the field. Look, yes, I started farming because I had that land, and as a result, it's been profitable.
See, I told you so.
Ah, he's so annoying. I was gradually getting fed up with Robin's complete misunderstanding.
All right, enough.
Fed up with the conversation, I shouted dismissively.
Fine. Robin can use half of the field. Do whatever you like with it.
Yeah. Robin, as if he had achieved complete victory, thrust his fist into the air. But despite my dismissive shout, I was quite calm inside. Well, let him try. Robin never helped with the farming when our parents were around. I wondered how he would approach it. I'll be watching closely.
Help me.
Wow, that was quick. It had only been a month since Robin started farming. I divided the field in half and let Robin use the barren part, but he gave up within just a month and came asking for help. Huh? Help with what?
I have no clue what to do.
I thought as much. The field was poorly maintained, with no preparation for planting whatsoever. What had he been doing this past month?
It's strange, isn't it? This field is supposed to be golden soil, right? I sowed seeds, but why aren't they growing properly?
Still on about the golden soil, huh? And thinking that just sowing seeds is enough? If it was that easy to grow delicious crops, everyone would be doing it. You need to study more. Maybe in a few years, it might become profitable? I was about to dismiss him, but then Robin, looking like he might cry, pleaded with me. Please, no snotty tears.
Help me out. You're my sis, right?
I don't want to think of someone who couldn't even come to our parents' final moments as a brother. Don't start calling me sis just because you need something. I coldly brushed him off, and Robin hung his head right there. I'm already busy with my own field. I got here with the help of many people. You should work hard and become someone who can also receive help. Like I said earlier, you need to persevere for a few years, and then.
I can't afford to be leisurely about this.
I was about to leave Robin, who showed no willingness to try, but then he looked at me with a serious expression.
I can't wait years or even months. I'm on the brink of a debt repayment deadline.
He shouted.
Debt. Yes. I have huge debts.
Why? You inherited $300,000 in cash, right? I spent it.
What? I poured it all into gambling, and now it's all gone. What?
I hated the idea of working again, so I tried to make a big win with loans, but that's gone too. Then I heard you were making money from farming, so I thought I'd try it too. But why isn't it working for me? Why am I not making any money?
How should I know?
I was astounded and lost for words. Robin had squandered the significant inheritance from our parents in just a few years. And now he thought he could easily make money from farming? It was ridiculous. Carol, please, I'm begging you to help. I refuse. No matter how much Robin pleaded, I couldn't bring myself to help him. Maybe if he had shown some determination to try on his own, I might have offered some assistance. But Robin was always relying on others. His irresponsibility unchanged.
Please, help me. The debt collectors are coming soon.
I left Robin shouting and walked away from the field. I don't know what became of him after that. I heard rumors that he was being chased by debt collectors. But nothing beyond that. Eventually, the field returned to my care. The farming, now on a larger scale, was going well. Justin, who helped on his days off, massaged my shoulders as I worked. Maybe I could join you in farming after I retire? Justin had recently suggested this. And it made me very happy. Our sons also seemed quite interested, maybe they'll join in too. The house and field protected by my father and loved by my mother. I wonder if my parents would be pleased to see them come back to life. Dad, Mom, I'll keep taking care of the field. Aiming to recreate the delicious vegetables they grew, I'll keep working hard. So please, both of you, watch over us.
The meals are so half-hearted. Make them properly. There are wrinkles left in the clothes. The meatloaf isn't even fully cooked. You didn't bake it long enough. My unemployed husband Andrew and his mother Marietta do nothing but complain all the time. On top of that, Andrew had an affair, and when I found out about it, he brazenly said, "I cheated with another woman because I'm irritated by your recent arrogant attitude." He even stayed at his mistress's place. "If you apologize sincerely, maybe I'll come back," he said. That's when I decided to divorce him. I'm Ashley Graham, a 30-year-old executive secretary. Currently, I live with my jobless husband, Andrew, and his mother, Marietta. Andrew and I were classmates since elementary and middle school, and he was always good at baseball. "I'll be a professional baseball player one day." That's what he said. He had such a talent for baseball that it didn't seem just like a child's dream. But Andrew couldn't handle pressure well and often failed to perform when it mattered, especially when scouts were watching or during crucial games like the USA Baseball National High School Invitational. By the time he was 20, no scouts had approached him. Having dated Andrew since high school and believing in his talent, I wanted him to continue playing baseball, even if it was just in a local league. So we got married while still students. I dropped out of college and started working as an executive secretary thanks to my uncle's help. "I want you to continue playing baseball. I'll support you, so let's get married." I proposed to him, and we married at 21. Back then, I was willing to do anything for him to pursue baseball, so we agreed not to have children until he succeeded. And I even suggested living with his mother, Marietta, because I was too busy with work to manage household chores perfectly. Andrew accepted my proposal. It seemed he was quite concerned about Marietta, who had been living alone after losing her husband. So the three of us started living in a house in Boston. For the first 5 years of our marriage, things seemed to go well. He practiced baseball diligently every day and even tried out for teams. Though unsuccessfully, Marietta took over household chores, always offering kind words to me, busy with my job. I was fulfilling my role as an executive secretary and living a fulfilling life. This peaceful time ended when we were over 27 years old. The small stationery company I worked for became popular online, growing from about 10 employees to around 100. Consequently, my salary increased significantly, probably one of the highest among my peers. With the establishment of a secretarial department, my workload decreased, allowing for more regular hours and days off. Originally, I helped with household chores on my days off to treat my husband to homemade meals and give Marietta a break. However, as I got more days off, Marietta left all the chores to me and started going out more. Meanwhile, Andrew, initially happy about my increased salary and time off, grew jealous of my success compared to his stagnant baseball career. "It must be nice, Ashley. You hardly put in any effort, and the company does well. Why is it always you who succeeds without doing anything? Unlike me." He became cold and unaffectionate. I thought, why do you have to say it like that? That's what I thought, but I said nothing. Understanding his frustration with his unsatisfactory career, maybe that was a mistake. Gradually, Andrew stopped attending tryouts and even practicing. He would either laze around at home, waste time at the racetrack, or frequent casinos. I had been giving him a substantial allowance since our marriage, increasing it as my salary grew, so he never struggled financially. I thought Marietta not doing chores and Andrew quitting baseball is just for now, they're taking a break. And I let it be, but their lives never improved. In fact, they spiraled further into decay. And finally, about a year ago, I reached the point where I considered divorce. I had indulged them too much. First, Marietta. At first, she helped with chores even when I was doing them. "I'll take care of it today," she used to say, but lately, she stopped doing any housework at all. Worse yet, when I was too busy to do chores, she would complain. "Ashley, look at this." The dishes are still not put away. What are you doing? Dishes left on the table are in the way and look unsightly. What? Frozen food for dinner today? That's unhealthy, you know. And even if you're buying it, you get home too late. So much complaining. To such Marietta, if I dared to say, "If it bothers you, maybe you could help with the chores, Marietta," she would snap back. "Expecting a frail old woman like me to work and do household chores?" She yells back, "Frail? Marietta is barely 60 and perfectly healthy. Ever since she started pushing chores onto me, she's been gallivanting off with friends to the beach, skiing and traveling every month. She's obviously not lacking energy." When I'm getting yelled at like this, Andrew joins in. "Hey, Ashley, don't be so harsh on my mom. You agreed to take on both the housework and your job. Don't start shoving it off on us now." As if I'm the villain. And with Andrew's support, Marietta grows even bolder. "Clothes are wrinkly. The meatloaf is undercooked. It needs more baking time. There's dust on the top of the cabinets." Her complaints about housework have morphed into nitpicking and nasty remarks. Then there's my husband, Andrew, now fully unemployed. For the last 2 years, he hasn't even touched a baseball bat. "When you give up baseball, how about getting a job?" I suggested. "I'm aiming to be a professional poker player. Don't meddle when you know nothing about it." Lately, that's his claim. I would support him if he truly wanted to become a poker player. In fact, it would be wonderful if he found a new dream after giving up baseball. But the reality is different. He just wants to play. So when I ask, "Haven't seen you go to the casino recently. What's up?" he replies, "I've given up on poker. I have a talent for horse racing, so I'll do that. Unlike you, I have many talents." Every time I point it out, he switches from poker player to horse racing predictor, professional darts player, and even pro golfer. Regardless of what he claims to be pursuing, he only spends about 2 days a week at these venues. I know he spends the rest of his time with women. I realized it 3 years ago after accompanying the CEO to a lunch meeting. "You don't have any plans today, so you can go straight home. Why don't you enjoy yourself in the city for a change?" Walking around, thinking of seeing a movie, I spotted Andrew entering a hotel with a woman. At first, I couldn't believe it, and watched the hotel entrance from a cafe across the street to be sure. 3 hours later, Andrew emerged. Slightly damp hair, in a manner that unmistakably suggested he had been up to no good. I was speechless, seeing him indulge in infidelity while I worked hard for his sake. When I got home, he acted as if he had been practicing, which enraged me. Why lie? How can he act so nonchalantly? From the day I witnessed his affair, I suspected infidelity every time he said he was going somewhere. I even followed him a few times on my days off. Out of 5 times, twice he met with women. Different ones each time. Of course I thought about divorce, but back then, he was still playing baseball. It must just be a fling. He'll stop eventually. If it's not the same woman, it's just a game. I convinced myself. I loved the Andrew who played baseball that much, but now he neither plays baseball nor shows any signs of change. He's a man who wanders, cheats, and along with Marietta, even started to harass me. "Hey, Ashley, don't leave the lights on. The meals are so half-hearted. Make them properly. What are you even here for?" He always blamed me arrogantly. It's ridiculous that he, being unemployed and supported by me, acts so high and mighty. If you have complaints, go work. I'm the one paying for electricity and groceries, you know? If you're so vocal about it, why don't you, Andrew, do the housework? When I say this, Andrew always reacts unreasonably. "You said you'd support me. Take responsibility. Don't order me around." "Yes, Ashley, don't order Andrew around. What's your intention?" Marietta always jumps in whenever Andrew angrily retorts without reason. These two always back each other up when one of them is at a disadvantage. I've wanted to get away from them, to end things with them. I even hired a detective agency, considering Andrew's infidelity as a ground for divorce. But I couldn't make up my mind. Maybe I made him incapable of living on his own. That thought made it hard to bring up divorce. He lacks life skills, can't do housework, doesn't want to work. He's living off my generosity. And he doesn't think there's anything wrong with that. Living with him became unbearable. But there was no catalyst. Then fortunately, he provided one. That day, I was supposed to return home late at night after dining with the CEO's client. However, the dinner was canceled due to the client's circumstances. The CEO suggested,
"Since we have a cancellation fee, why not eat here?"
but I declined, saying, "Why not invite your parents instead?" I said no. He seemed happy.
"Will you do that?"
And called his parents. After parting ways with the CEO, I returned home in the evening. There were unfamiliar women's shoes at the entrance. By then, I knew from the detective's information that my husband was bringing his mistress home, but I didn't expect them today. Maybe they belonged to a friend of Marietta's. She said she was going to the theater with a friend, but maybe they hadn't left yet. With that thought, I headed to the living room. As I walked down the hallway and got closer to the living room, I intermittently heard a woman's high-pitched screams. Despite a bad feeling, I opened the living room door and saw my husband straddling a woman on the sofa. I instantly understood what was happening. To my surprise, I was shocked. I knew he was cheating, but seeing it was unbearable. I wanted to escape from there and ran out of the house. It was like the time I first witnessed his affair. The image stuck in my mind. And now I had seen my husband in the act. The thought of that scene flashing back every time I saw him made me feel sick. I sat on a park bench for a while to calm myself. I couldn't worry about his future anymore. I had to divorce him. After about 2 hours, I left the park and returned home. The lights were off. Cautiously entering, I found neither the mistress nor my husband. I didn't want to enter the living room where they had been, so I curled up in my room. Then my husband called. Maybe he was looking for me, I thought. But that hope was quickly shattered. "Hello?"
"You at home?"
"Yes, I'm here, but..."
"Then this will be quick. You saw earlier, right? I have someone I'm dating. With your recent bossy attitude, telling me to work and do chores. What's up with that? It irritated me, so I found someone else. I'll stay at her place for a while. If you're willing to reflect and change your ways, maybe I'll come back. Apologize deeply. Take your time to think about it."
He said his piece and hung up without listening to me. I didn't understand. Why does the person caught cheating act so high and mighty, and why should I, the one who caught him, apologize? Stunned, I stared at the disconnected phone. Then Marietta returned. Noticing the absence of her son in the living room, she entered my bedroom without knocking. "Where's Andrew?" Not knowing how to respond, I told Marietta everything that happened. Then Marietta said, "You finally noticed. He's been upset with your attitude lately. It's unbelievable, your behavior. With that attitude, it's no wonder he found someone else. Reflect and apologize properly." She emphasized that I should apologize and left the room. I couldn't sleep that night, filled with frustration and anger. Why am I being blamed? Why should I apologize? Aren't they the ones with the wrong attitude? An unemployed husband who continues to play around, and Marietta, who lives leisurely without doing any housework? I was the one supporting them. I don't recall ever being thanked or being told to apologize. More than my husband's infidelity, I couldn't forgive the actions taken by both him and Marietta. At the park, I thought if I suggested divorce, and he changed his ways, I might reconsider. But after what happened earlier, I decided to divorce them completely. No matter what my husband or Marietta said, I was going to divorce. Resolved, I spent the entire night packing my things, knowing I wouldn't be able to sleep. Within a week, I was ready to move. Marietta, seeing no apology from me, yelled daily, "Apologize already!" But I continued to ignore her. As I looked at moving sites during lunch at work, the CEO approached me.
"Miss Graham, are you considering moving?"
Eventually, he would find out, so I told him about the divorce.
On hearing it was because of my husband's infidelity, his face twisted in disgust.
I always heard how hard you worked for your husband. I thought he must be a good man, but this is just low.
After saying this, the CEO made a certain offer, which I accepted. A week later,
well, I'm off. Make sure you apologize properly to Andrew today,
Marietta yelled before leaving for a hot spring trip with friends. For the past week, I pretended to be reflective to execute my plan. And, as an apology, why don't you go on a trip with your friends? Here's my card. Have as much fun as you want, I suggested. Marietta, without a doubt, invited 3 friends for a trip on her treat and left cheerfully. Once she was gone, I packed all of Marietta's belongings into boxes in her room. By the time I finished, it was evening. I put her stuff outside with my husband's previously packed belongings. Since it was still within our property, I didn't expect any legal trouble. The next morning, I had a junk removal service take away all the furniture and appliances from the house. I didn't want anything that my husband, Marietta, or his mistress might have touched in my new place. After handing over my stuff to the movers, and before leaving the now empty house, I had a locksmith change the locks. Now everything was set. I arrived at my new place, 2 hours away from the old home. As I was about to unpack, Marietta called.
Ashley, what is this? The card you gave me expired. I managed to pay with my card, but I was so embarrassed in front of my friends.
Marietta was furious. She must have been alone by then. It was just around that time. I tried to hold back my laughter, but couldn't.
What are you laughing at?
Sorry, it's just too funny. I knew the card had expired. When you took it so happily, I was glad you didn't check.
What do you mean? What's going on?
I've had enough of Andrew and you. I'm divorcing Andrew. I won't be returning home. All your belongings are at the front door. The house is canceled. So please pick them up soon. Someone else is moving in a week. Goodbye.
Wait.
I said my piece and hung up without letting Marietta speak. Yes, I gave her an expired card on purpose. I needed her out of the house to execute my plan. I had to somehow get him to leave the house for 2 days. I had no intention of doing anything for Marietta, so I gave her the expired card and suggested the trip. As expected, she didn't notice and left. Everything went according to plan. 30 minutes later, my husband called.
Hey, Ashley, what's this about?
You heard from Marietta, right?
Stop joking around.
I'm serious. I've been fed up with you and Marietta. Thanks to you leaving, I decided to divorce. Thank you.
Huh?
It was good timing for you to leave. I didn't know where your mistress lives, so I left your belongings outside the door. I told Marietta too. Pick them up soon. It's a hassle for the next person. Also, I was about to explain about the divorce papers through a lawyer when the call ended. He probably hung up in anger. What a foolish man. 3 days later, the lawyer informed me that he had delivered the divorce papers to Andrew. I had told Andrew I didn't know where his mistress lived, but in truth, I had hired a detective agency to find out. The lawyer said Andrew insisted on not divorcing, and it seemed we were headed for divorce mediation. It was a hassle, but if Andrew was set on it, I had no choice. I had plenty of evidence, and fortunately, we had no children. The responsibility was on him for his infidelity, and most of the assets were earned by me, so I should be fine. As I was thinking this, Andrew called. I ignored him, having no intention to discuss anything outside a formal setting.
Don't think you can get away. I will never agree to a divorce. I will make a scene at your workplace.
But he sent text messages. I found it amusing to see my husband act exactly as the CEO and I had anticipated. That night, I got a call from the CEO that my husband had been taken away by the police. According to the CEO, my husband had arrived at the reception and asked,
"Where is Ashley Graham? I'm her husband."
I heard that. The receptionist answered, "Miss Graham has resigned and is no longer with our company," she answered. Thinking it a lie, my husband barged into the CEO's office and demanded,
"Where is Ashley?"
He asked the CEO.
The CEO replied,
Miss Graham resigned last week.
He answered,
Do not tell a lie.
and tried to hit the CEO. My husband tried to hit the CEO, but he was restrained by the security officers called by the receptionist. He was taken away by the police for trespassing and attempted assault. Throughout, he protested,
Ashley's workplace. It's not trespassing.
but since I had indeed resigned the previous week, the police didn't listen to him. Everything went exactly as planned. On the day I mentioned to the CEO about considering moving for the divorce, he suggested,
Declare your divorce while your husband is out of the house, and then you leave too. When he realizes you're serious about the divorce, he'll come back home, but you won't be there. Panicking, he'll likely storm your workplace. So quit here before that happens.
I was surprised to be told to quit my job.
I don't actually want you to leave, but you need to change your workplace for a while. If you have resigned, your husband's intrusion can be considered trespassing. If he gets arrested, it'll expedite the divorce and serve as a punishment for hurting you. For this, you need to resign temporarily. I'll hire you as a consultant in a subsidiary for about a year, and then you can return as a secretary after the divorce is settled.
It was a generous offer, but I had doubts about everything going as smoothly as he predicted. Yet it did. 3 days later, after my husband's interrogation was finished, the lawyer and I visited him in detention. He had been detained to prevent him from harassing me at work or my new home. Seeing me, my husband cried out,
Ashley, forgive me.
The sound of handcuffs rang as he seemed to be restrained.
I was wrong. I'll leave the other woman and come back home.
He pleaded. My heart was unexpectedly unmoved. As my husband continued to beg, the lawyer calmly explained the divorce terms.
Mrs. Graham has concluded that continuing the marriage is impossible. Given the affair, the responsibility lies with the husband. She desires a divorce without property division and a compensation of $50,000.
Andrew continued to plead in response to the lawyer's words.
No, I want divorce, Ashley. Forgive me, please.
But as I remained silent, he started to get irritated and said,
I will never divorce. I'll chase after you for life.
He started saying,
If you won't sign the divorce papers, it will go to mediation.
The lawyer said,
Fine by me. I'll fight this in court. However, considering the evidence of adultery, it will be quite disadvantageous for you. If it goes to court, you will need to hire a lawyer. Evidence of adultery? Show it if you can.
As Andrew said this with a smug smile, I pulled out photos from my bag and threw them on the table. They were the pictures of Andrew's affair, taken by the detective agency. Seeing them, Andrew became quiet and pleaded for reconciliation. I thought to myself, after being caught in the act and still living with his mistress, how could he be so confident without evidence?
Please, forgive me, I was wrong,
Andrew repeated. As things weren't progressing, I said, You either sign the divorce papers here, or we go to mediation. Decide quickly. Andrew looked downcast.
What am I supposed to do without Ashley, huh?
I don't know. Maybe pursue being a professional poker player or a darts pro. Don't you have talents? I said, laughing. Andrew was speechless. Seeing his downcast face gave me a sense of closure. With no desire to discuss further, I decided to leave the rest to the lawyer. As I left the room, Andrew desperately called out, but I ignored him. 2 hours later, the lawyer informed me that Andrew had agreed to the divorce. As a result, we divorced with no property distribution, and he had to pay me the $50,000 I requested. Half a year later, my ex-husband Andrew was working part-time deep into the night to pay me $1.5K monthly as compensation. The CEO told me that he saw Andrew getting scolded as a supervisor at a site doing unfamiliar part-time work. For Andrew, who lived unemployed until 30, it must be necessary to go to such lengths to make $1.5K a month. Marietta, whom he relied on, I'm being chased by debt collectors due to card payment delays. Please help me. Contacted me last month saying, apparently she had splurged on that trip and now, with no income but her pension, she couldn't cover her expenses. The lawyer mentioned they might end up applying for TANF. If that happens, the compensation will be reduced monthly, extending the period. I'm earning on my own, and the compensation was more of a statement towards them, so it's fine if they suffer longer. As for me, I've been living a fulfilling life since the divorce. Being a consultant at the subsidiary means working only 2 days a week and attending a few hours of meetings, so it's quite relaxing. Thanks to this newfound leisure, I've been enjoying dates with my new boyfriend. He had apparently been infatuated with me for over 7 years and saw an opportunity when he heard about my divorce troubles. He decided to help with the divorce plan and asked me out once I was single. Yes, my new boyfriend is my former employer's CEO. He had always been fond of me as I worked hard for my ex-husband. Now I spend my days happily with this kind CEO, going to various places. After my experience with Andrew, I'm not keen on marriage for a while, so I'm enjoying these lover-like days.